Boy bands have been taking the world by storm for decades. New Kids on the Block, the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, One Direction, BTS, the boy band has been a very popular phenomenon for generations. The boy band features a group of young male musical talents who often write love songs for a female audience. And along with the success of children's musical content such as High School Musical and Hannah Montana, Disney and Nickelodeon decided to create their own boy bands. The Jonas Brothers and Big Time Rush are the biggest bands to come from each of the networks, and each having their own television series. Their comedy TV shows are principal to their rise in fame and make them recognizable to this day. As a fan of both bands and their television shows, I wanted to break down and compare and contrast the most popular boy band TV shows of my time. Also, both of these bands are back from hiatus and are going on tour this year. Hi, I'm Mia, and I have a lot of nostalgia for these two very popular boy bands, despite only being 3 when the shows premiered, and that is thanks to reruns and all their cousins. This video is going to be broken down into segments where I compare and contrast different aspects of the TV shows Big Time Rush and Jonas. And maybe we'll figure out which show wins this battle of the boy bands.
I'm James. I'm Carlos. I'm Kendall. I'm Logan. We are Big Time Rush.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm Nick. I'm Kevin, and we're the Jonas Brothers.
And why am I qualified to talk about this? Because I have met all of Big Time Rush and all of the Jonas Brothers. I'm going to kick off this video by introducing each of the bands and how they formed, and then I'm going to transition to the television series. The Jonas Brothers are 3 real-life brothers, Kevin, Joe, and Nick Jonas, who were discovered in their hometown of New Jersey at a very young age. In 2006, they released their first album underneath Columbia Records. Around 2007, they began to make appearances on the Disney Channel in multiple projects and soundtracks, and they quickly rocketed to fame, becoming huge names for the network. All while growing in fame, touring the world, and working on their 4th album, the brothers were offered a television show. The TV show Jonas, later retitled Jonas LA, aired from May 2nd, 2009 to October 3rd, 2010. The show was not renewed for a 3rd season, reportedly because of low ratings, but I believe that the brothers' lack of interest was a huge factor for its cancellation. Ultimately, the group broke up in 2013, each going for their own solo careers before returning in 2019. The story of Big Time Rush is a little bit different. In 2007, Nickelodeon sent out a nationwide casting call in search for a 4-member boy band to create a real-life band and a TV show counterpart. After thousands of sent-in auditions and in-person auditions, the first members casted were James Maslow and Logan Henderson. Followed by them was Carlos Pena, now named Carlos Pena Vega, and after some struggle casting the lead member, Nickelodeon finally discovered Kendall Schmidt. The show finally aired on Nickelodeon from November 28, 2009 to July 25, 2013, lasting 4 seasons. Throughout the show's run, the boys released 3 studio albums while going on tour and being huge names for the network. After completing their tour in Mexico in March of 2014, the band decided to go on hiatus, each of them continuing with solo careers. In 2020, the group hinted at a reunion before officially announcing their return in 2021. So, what is the boy band TV show? The boy band TV show, in my definition, is a television series that follows fictionalized versions of the real-life band members. Initially, these shows were created to help shine light on these new bands and also get younger audiences familiar with the different members. Both shows have the characters with the same first names but different last names. The Jonas Brothers are renamed to Kevin, Nick, and Joe Lucas, and the Big Time Rush Boys are renamed to Kendall Knight, James Diamond, Logan Mitchell, and Carlos Garcia. Both shows follow the bands during their everyday lives as they navigate fame and do general teenage boy things. Also, in Big Time Rush, they make it abundantly clear that they're a boy band, while in Jonas, they will state that they are rock stars when they are very clearly a boy band. And now I'm going to discuss the main characters and a little bit of the cast, although it's pretty self-explanatory who plays them. And we're going to start with Jonas. Joe Lucas, played by Joe Jonas of course, was the main character out of the brothers, to make that abundantly clear. And he's your average pretty boy. He's very popular, and his main plots focus around being in love with his best friend Stella, or becoming an actor, and of course being in a band with his brothers. Nick Lucas, played by Nick Jonas, is the youngest of the 3 brothers. He's also the smart, sensitive one, and the songwriter for the band. Kevin Lucas, played by Kevin Jonas, he's considered a dumb brother, but he's full of comic relief and has a heart of gold. Important side characters include Stella Malone, the band's stylist, and their childhood friend, played by Chelsea Kane, previously Chelsea Staub. Macy Misa is the crazy fangirl who later turns into the band's social media manager. Macy was played by Nicole Gail Anderson. Tom Lucas is the band's dad/manager. He's a main character in the 1st season, but only a guest star in the 2nd season. And then there is Frankie Lucas, the band's littlest brother, played by Frankie Jonas. And with Big Time Rush, the main character is Kendall Knight, played by Kendall Schmidt. He's usually the most sensible and grounded one, and he loves pep talks and hockey. James Diamond, played by James Maslow, is the pretty boy. He's a little bit egotistical, but his dream has always been to be a pop star, so he's very determined. Carlos Garcia, played by Carlos Pena Vega, aka Carlos Pena, aka Carlos Pena Jr. Carlos is the dumb one of the group. He's funny with a heart of gold, and he's always wearing a helmet. Logan Mitchell, played by Logan Henderson, is the smart one of the group. He's a little more cautious than the others, and he's always wanted to be a doctor, but he doesn't mind being a part of the band. And there are a bunch of important side characters in Big Time Rush as well. There is Gustavo Rock, played by Stephen Kramer Glickman, and he is the band's very hot-headed boss/manager. Kelly Wainwright is Gustavo's assistant and helps keep him and the boys in check. She's honestly underappreciated, and she's played by Tanya Chisholm. There's Katie Knight. She's Kendall's little sister, and she's played by Sierra Bravo. Jo Taylor, not to be confused with Joe Jonas, is an actress, and she's played by Caitlin Tarver. There's Camille Roberts, the crazy method actress, and she was played by Erin Sanders. There's Lucy Stone, the bad girl, or rocker, but she is played by Malise Zhao. There's Jennifer Knight, one of the only parent figures in this show, and she is Kendall's mother. There are a few more relevant adult figures in this show, including Mr. Bitters, the owner of the apartment complex, and Buddha Bob, who is the maintenance man. Now, quickly, I'm just gonna discuss some comparisons and similarities between some of the characters. I would say Joe Jonas is very similar to a mix between Kendall and James, being the main character, but also being very into his looks. Nick is like Logan, as they're both the sensitive ones and the smart ones. They're also each my favorite characters, so that says something about me. Kevin is obviously like Carlos, in which they're the dumb ones, and they're sidelined, which is not fair. Frankie Lucas is a lot like Katie Knight, in which they're the little siblings, and they usually are just there for comedy or side plots, but Katie's way more relevant than Frankie. Stella is a lot like Jo Taylor, in which they are both blonde, and I'm kidding, but they're also the main love interests for the main characters. Macy's a lot like Camille, where they're a little eccentric at first. They're also love interests. Honestly, my favorite female characters from each show: Big Man and Freight Train. Big Man is Jonas's security, and Freight Train he was the boys' security guard. But they're both security guards, and they're not really good at their jobs because they're not there all the time, but whatever. They're both funny, and they honestly deserve more episodes. Now I'm going to break down the structure of these series and just kind of how they flow together. Big Time Rush was a single-camera children's comedy show, meaning that it was not filmed in front of a live studio audience like many kids' shows at the time. There's also no laugh track, and instead it is substituted with very heavy sound effects, which is honestly a little bit refreshing and unique.
What do you want?
Even though if most of the critiques of the show state that the sound effects are used too heavily, making it nearly unwatchable, I don't think that's the case in my opinion. I like to call Big Time Rush a live-action cartoon because it certainly feels like one. The show is carried by unrealistic and outlandish situations that take the boys on wild adventures. While this is the case, the show also goes out of the way to have some grounded moments, but the thing about Big Time Rush is that it never takes itself too seriously. The show's creator, Scott Fellows, also liked to make jokes in which episode titles had double meanings, such as Big Time Fans, which referred to the boys handling crazy fans. Meanwhile, Kelly and Gustavo are literally fixing a fan in the studio. However, the children's version of the slapstick comedy can only be so entertaining for so long, as by the 4th and 3rd season, the boys have clearly grown up, their haircuts making it more obvious, and the silly antics aren't as charming, which is a common issue in kids shows, with the cast outgrowing the age they should be playing, and just sometimes just doesn't make it as entertaining to watch. The show lasted for 4 seasons, but in 2012, between seasons 2 and 3, there was a Big Time Rush movie, accurately titled Big Time Movie, but honestly, I don't like the movie, and it's not canon to me, but I'll touch more on it later. Jonas, created by Michael Curtis and Robert S.H. Soldman, is also a single-camera children's comedy show. It's also interesting that at the time, single camera was not popular on Disney or Nick, so both of these shows being single camera is really interesting to me. But the first season of Jonas included some mild sound effects and occasionally fourth wall breaks, usually by Kevin.
There was like 100 pictures of her in his locker, right?
And it also did not have a laugh track. It's more of your classic sitcom, but it has its fair share of crazy situations for the brothers. The first season also has some wild transitions between the scenes, which sometimes they made me laugh. Jonas LA, or Jonas Season 2, was rebranded. Like many Disney shows, Jonas LA takes a wild 360 from the first season, shifting from a sitcom to a serialized dramedy. Each episode opens up with a
previously on Jonas LA
segment which recaps the previous episodes, making each episode connected, and you need to watch them in order for the story to make sense. The season contains a full serialized arc, a different approach for Disney. I can't really think of another time they did this except for in Andy Mack, but that was much later. Jonas was really trying to emulate a teenage drama on the Disney Channel. I think if they took a step back and didn't try so hard to recreate that, then it probably would have gotten renewed or been more interesting to watch. Both of these shows really relied on outlandish scenarios, silly costumes, and like embarrassing situations like classic comedies, but sometimes it can feel a little bit cliche, but it does make both shows very entertaining for young audiences, which is what it's meant for. Another thing I want to compare about the two shows is that in Jonas, Nick serves as a songwriter for the brothers. Joe, Nick, and Kevin also all play the bass or guitar. Nick plays the drums, and I'm pretty sure one of them plays the piano in one episode. And in contrast, the Big Time Rush boys are not songwriters, except for the episode Big Time Songwriters, in which the whole episode is focusing on them writing the song Oh Yeah, which the boys did write in real life. But the boys also don't play instruments aside from Kendall in one episode, I believe. And I just thought that was like an interesting approach. The Big Time Rush boys usually rely on Gustavo for all the songwriting and music stuff, which I guess makes sense. They didn't have any experience in the pilot. Also, another musical difference between the two shows is that in Big Time Rush, most of their musical sequences are performances of the characters that take place in the real world, while in Jonas, most of the musical sequences are imaginations or cutaways to fake music videos that don't take place in the characters' real lives. There are also exceptions to this, such as Worldwide or the performance of Feeling Alive from the Jonas finale, but Jonas tended to favor the fake music video cutaways more. I also want to mention that both of these shows came out in 2009, so a lot of late 2000s and early 2010 trends was very present at the time, whether it be the boys' haircuts or the layered fashion being dead giveaways. Every time that I saw a digital camera or a little sidekick phone in these shows, it really took me back. I actually can't imagine going to a concert with just a digicam. Another present thing in both of these shows is the heavy influence of J14 or Tiger Beat magazines, which I used to collect. I love those things. The fan culture present in these shows were just so specific to the era in which they came out in that makes it so nostalgic to go back and watch. Honestly, compared to a lot of other shows from the early 2000s, both of these shows were very fun to go back and rewatch, and aside from a few questionable jokes, they aged pretty well. They're such lighthearted shows that going back and rewatching them and seeing all the characters interact, I actually caught myself smiling and genuinely laughing a few times. It was just so fun to like relive my childhood and my obsession of boy bands. And now I'm going to discuss the series pilots. If you don't know, pilots are usually what the first episode of TV series are titled, but in this case, both of the first episodes are not titled pilots. The first episode of Big Time Rush, titled Big Time Audition, is a 1-hour special that was written by Scott Fellows and directed by Savage Steve Holland and aired on November 28, 2009. It opens up in Minnesota where we meet our four main boys, once again, Kendall, James, Carlos, and Logan, and they're all hockey players for their high school and they're running from a mob of teen girls. Not because they're famous, but because they have decided to prank the girls' hockey team. Meanwhile, world-renowned music producer Gustavo Rock comes to town with his assistant Kelly looking for talent, and James wants to audition, since he's always wanted to be a pop star. The boys convince Kendall's neighbor, an old lady, who later comes back, to sit in the car with them while Logan drives to the audition since he only has a learner's permit. The boys end up at the audition, and Kelly convinces all four of them to audition, because Gustavo is desperate. Logan goes on stage first and beatboxes, and Gustavo makes him cry. Carlos farts into the microphone during his audition, and then Gustavo pulls out a gun for some reason. James messes up during his audition, and Gustavo calls him talentless, leading to Kendall standing up for him and singing the Turd song at Gustavo's face while fighting the security guards. All the boys get involved in a fight with security and end up getting escorted back home with the cops. Then we meet Mrs. Knight, Kendall's mother Jennifer, who is not mad at the boys surprisingly, even though his little sister Katie thinks they should be in trouble. That night, Gustavo shows up at the house and says he wants to recruit Kendall to come with him to LA. Kendall says no. The next day, the boys tell Kendall that he's stupid and should have said yes, so Kendall calls Gustavo to the grocery store that he works at and finally agrees to go with him to LA, but only if he brings the three guys with him so they can become a musical group. They also earn the nickname Dogs because Gustavo has once said that he can make even a dog famous. From then on, Gustavo refers to the boys as the Dogs. All four boys move to LA with Mrs. Knight as their guardian, along with Katie, and we hear the song Famous for the first time, one of my favorites, and the boys are living at an apartment complex named Palmwoods, a home for the future famous. At the time, I believe there was a real-life equivalent to the Palmwoods in LA where a lot of child stars were living, and I don't remember what it was called. Anyways, the boys are chilling at the pool of the Palmwoods, and you meet some side characters, most notably Camille and the Jennifers. The Jennifers are three girls all named Jennifer who are mean and they're actresses. And this is like one of the only episodes where Camille slaps someone that isn't Logan. At the studio, Rock Records, the boys have 3 days to prove that their band has potential to Gustavo's boss, Griffin, who is also a reoccurring character. He's kind of silly. He's also a little annoying. The boys argue a lot and cause a lot of chaos, and they also make it abundantly clear that Carlos and Logan cannot sing or dance. and I don't know how they learned to do so in 3 days, but whatever. Also, from the last scene on, they just accept that they can sing now. They never go to vocal lessons, they're just talented now. While at a low point, Kendall gives the boys his very first pep talk at the Palmwoods fire pit, and the boys name themselves Big Time Rush, deciding that they don't want to sing the song about girls that Gustavo wrote for them. This changes pretty quickly though. They definitely sing a lot of songs about girls later on, and we do get a montage of them training to impress Griffin. They learn to dance and sing somehow, and I always find it really funny when the four of them are singing with this one little microphone in the booth. We hear them perform the theme song Big Time Rush for the first time, and Griffin approves and gives the boys 3 months to make a demo, which basically sets up the entire first season. And I really like this pilot episode. It just feels so different from the rest of the show just because the sound effects are really tuned down, and half of the episode does take place in Minnesota, which is a completely different set, but the episode still provides a lot of character introductions and dynamics and running jokes that stay relevant for the rest of the series. It's honestly one of the best episodes of Big Time Rush in my opinion. Now we're going to move on to Jonas. The first episode of Jonas, titled Wrong Song, is directed by Jerry Levine and written by Ivan Menchel, and the episode aired on May 2nd, 2009. And this episode's pretty different from most pilots or first episodes because it doesn't really include any introductions to the characters, and it just kind of immediately opens up on a plot. And it opens up on Nick, who has a crush on this girl named Penny, played by Bridget Mendler from Lemonade Mouth or Good Luck Charlie, and most recently, she's known for starting her own space startup. Nick's brothers, Kevin and Joe, quickly notice that he has a crush on this girl and worry because Nick has a tendency to fall really fast for girls that he likes. And Nick's quickly established as the serious, sensitive brother. Nick promises his brothers that this time it's different, even though he has already wallpapered his locker with Penny's face. And then Kevin breaks the fourth wall, and we hear the theme song for the first time. It's honestly one of the more underrated Disney theme songs in my opinion. I really like it. Then we meet Stella and Macy. Stella's the brother's stylist, and she's working on making a breakaway jacket, or Stelcro as she calls it, so the boys can avoid crazy fans who like to rip their clothes. Macy very quickly reveals that she is a huge fan of Jonas and loves going to the same school as them. Stella has a streak of red hair in this episode, and it's only in this episode, but it really reminded me of the trend of having like one colored streak in your hair and how I always wanted one. Stella wants to know the drama between Penny and Nick, establishing that Stella is friends with the brothers. Anyway, Stella tests another one of her Stelcro shirts with Macy, but essentially she just kind of ends up making her flash the whole school. And I also noticed that the boys' school bags are the same fabric as their school uniforms. They also wear school uniforms, which I don't really like, but we'll move on. Penny invites Nick to watch her play a gig at a restaurant, and predictably, Nick is already moving too fast with Penny and writes her a ballad love song. Then there's this weird music video breakaway where the brothers are wearing white and singing, well, I guess only Nick singing, and Penny has angel wings, and they're under red lighting in the high school. Then there's this weird comedy aspect where her angel wings like hit people, I guess. Whatever, the song's titled Give Love a Try, and it was never formally released. It's decent though. Then we cut to the Lucas family home. Then we also meet their dad Tom, who is also the brother's manager. Nick explains that he's nervous to see Penny perform, so Kevin and Joe offer to accompany him, but Nick is worried that they will be recognized as Jonas when they show up, so they have to show up in disguise. This also means that we have to assume that Jonas is already a very popular band. At the restaurant, Penny begins to perform by singing the song that Nick wrote for her, and they also find out that Penny has a boyfriend named Jimmy, and Joe is wearing his Stelcro pants inside out, and this scene's kind of funny.
Jimmy.
The next day, Nick lies and tells Penny that it was okay that she sang the song as her own because he did write it for her. Then Penny shows up at the house because Nick promised to let her record a demo in their studio. Their studio is also their bedroom. After a pep talk from his brothers, Nick tells Penny the truth that he wrote the song because he has a crush on her and it was actually for her, not for her to sing. Penny apologizes for leading him on and goes to leave, but Nick encourages her to stay and record the song anyways. Penny then reveals that she actually broke up with Jimmy, and then she low-key flirts with Nick. Then they record Give Love a Try as a duet, and we never see Penny again. The final scene is Macy testing the Stelcro clothes for Macy, but she ends up just kind of ripping Joe's actual clothes off. Season 1 Macy's kind of insane. This is a really strange episode in my opinion. As an episode itself, it's really good, but as the first episode, it's a bit weird. They spend a lot of time developing this relationship between Penny and Nick, only for her to be a throwaway guest star character. Stella and Macy are really only in the B plot, and they kind of just stay there for most of the first season, but the show does establish all the characters' personalities very quickly, which is important to a first episode, so that was done effectively. One of the most foundational parts of this show was not mentioned in the pilot episode at all, and that would be Joe and Stella's feelings for each other, but don't worry, you get plenty of that in later episodes. And now I'm just going to recap some of the overarching plots for both of the shows. This is not the type of video essay where I'm going to go in depth for every single episode, just because there are so many episodes of Big Time Rush, and not that many episodes of Jonas. I'm just gonna recap kind of what happens in some episodes, at least what's important. Alright, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the conflict in these episodes are the result of the guys just having bad media training and terrible security guards. Both shows focus on teenage boys doing teenage boy things and being famous. And starting with Big Time Rush, they begin their show not being famous and they have to build their way up. Season 1 focuses on them recording their first demos, and it all leads to their very first concert in the finale. And the rest of the show focuses on them doing fame-related things, all while becoming more and more famous. The first 2 seasons have a few high school-related plot lines, but that's later dropped in the second half of the show. There's also a few love stories that develop throughout the show, but I will touch on those later, don't you worry. This show also has one of my least favorite finales ever, but I also am going to do a section on the finales. For Jonas is already a famous band at the beginning of the show, and season 1 focuses on some classic high school shenanigans. Joe and Stella are a prominent love story in the first season, and season 2 changes basically the entire premise of the show and kind of everyone's personalities as well. The boys are staying in LA for the summer, and Joe just accidentally somehow becomes a huge actor in a huge movie. I didn't really love this storyline. I found his co-star Vanessa to be kind of annoying. The second love story is between Nick and Macy, surprisingly, but once again, I will talk about the couples later. And the second season is almost exclusively centering around Joe and Stella. But all in all, the heart of these shows are definitely the chemistry between the band members. Both shows do an incredible job with making the main guys seem very close with one another. In the case of Jonas, the boys are brothers in real life, so that kind of gives it an unfair advantage. But this doesn't always mean that their on-screen chemistry is natural. The first season does a much better job at making them seem like brothers. By the second season, Nick and Joe are usually on their own plots, and Kevin's paired with either one of them, depending on the episode. Because they're separated more often, you almost forget that they're brothers, aside from the obvious resemblance. The first season spends more time developing their dynamic as a band and as brothers, which I appreciated. If they had carried this over to the second season, it would have made the second season feel more Jonas-centered, and less like the Joe Show.
Wait, are you guys starring in a movie too? I forget. No, we're all just extras in the Joe Show.
The BTR boys do an incredible job at coming off as childhood friends. If you told me these were 4 guys from Minnesota who knew each other since childhood, I would believe you. Although in most episodes they're separated into pairs for A and B plots, they usually have at least 1 or more scenes per episode altogether. And when all 4 of them are together, that is when the show shines its best. Their dynamic is very clear, and you understand each of the characters' personalities. It's full of casual banter, but also comes off as 4 friends who would never really fight. Both of these shows actually ditched school plotlines in the later seasons, which is kind of rare for Disney and Nick, as most of the time their shows take place in high school. But I guess in this case, it gives more time for them to focus on music-related plotlines, which is fine. Those are more interesting anyways. Besides, most of them look too old to be in high school anyways, and Nick was really the only one high school age within the first season. Also, the Jonas Brothers are technically still in high school. They're just on summer vacation in the second season, but they look like they should be graduated. Because both of these shows are focused on the bands, it has a very different family dynamic than most sitcoms or children's shows at the time. In Jonas, it's pretty simple. The brothers have a mother and father, and then their little brother Frankie. But their parents, unlike other Disney Channel parents, are never involved in their own plots and only appear with the brothers. Their father Tom is also the band manager, so he makes many more appearances than their mother Sandy. And in the second season, neither of the parents are present except for one episode which guest stars the father. Frankie honestly shows up the most aside from the 3 brothers. He's funny, but he doesn't really receive any real character traits aside from the fact that he is the little brother. In BTR, Jennifer Knight acts as the parental figure for all the boys. She's a single mother who steps up to supervise the boys as they move to LA. She's a pretty one-dimensional mom character who acts as a stage mom and cares for all the boys, and sometimes she has to help get them out of trouble. Kendall's little sister, Katie, also lives with them. Katie spends most of the time in B or even C plots of episodes. She's very business-oriented. She's always trying to scam or scheme to make money. Katie spends more time with various adult characters or James over her own brother. A few cast members have confirmed that Kendall and Katie's dad was a hockey player who had an affair and then left, but this was written out of the show ultimately. As for the other 3 boys, their families are rarely ever mentioned, except for the episode Big Time Moms, which features James, Carlos, and Logan's mom. We learn that James's mom is rich and the owner of a cosmetic company. We also learn that his dad divorced his mom and is now dating a woman 15 years younger than him. He makes a brief appearance in Big Time Concert. We know that Logan's mom is a real estate agent, and he moved to Minnesota in the 3rd grade, and the other guys bullied him until he did their homework for them, and then they befriended him. We learn that Carlos's mom works in tech and that his dad is a cop. He appears in the episode Big Time Break, and then other than this, we never see or hear about their families. They exclusively stay with Mrs. Knight. When you watch Jonas, it's clear that it's just the Joe Lucas show. Joe receives the main love story, the main plotline in season 2, and is the lead in most songs. Despite Kevin being the oldest and showing up first in the credits, Kevin's mostly sidelined in the show, and he sticks to B plots and never receives a proper love story. And he kind of has a storyline where he wants to be a director, but that's barely explored aside from the episode direct to video. Kevin's often the butt of the joke or provides comic relief in scenes. Nick is the second most prominent brother in the show. He has a huge storyline with Macy in the second season, and he's also the songwriter for the band. All I'm saying is that they have been doing Kevin dirty for years. Stella and Macy are decent characters. They each have their own personalities and hobbies aside from being the brothers' love interest. Stella has her fashion aspirations, and I'm happy that they altered Macy's fangirl tendencies to her being a social media and marketing girl, because it just makes so much sense. Other characters in Jonas, specifically side characters, are not really utilized. In the second season, there is a girl named Vanessa who's a very basic, self-centered LA actress, and she usually just comes off as annoying, even though she does have a good heart in the end. There's also their neighbor, DZ, and he's just kind of your classic, like, annoying neighbor, and nobody really likes him, but they let him hang out because he has connections. Honestly, I kind of just feel bad for the guy, but he does disappear after a few episodes anyways. What I'm saying is that most of the side characters from Jonas are not very memorable. Big Time Rush does a good job at including all 4 boys, although it's very clear that Kendall's the main character, but that's fine. Kendall was written to be the main character, and depending on the situation, he's usually the most reasonable and down-to-earth one amongst the boys, while the other 3 can be reduced down to stereotypes most of the time, with James being the pretty boy, Carlos being the dumb one, and Logan the smart one. BTR does attempt to expand the boys beyond that, because Logan's also good at hockey, and he doesn't exclusively do the, like, classic nerd things. The only exception of this would probably be Carlos, because most of the time he is just the dumb one. They never really explain why he wears his helmet all the time, and most of the time all he wants is a girlfriend. Oh yeah, all the boys in these shows are girl crazy. And that is where our problems arise. Joe, Kendall's main love interest, Joe, is essentially just the girl version of Kendall. The only difference is that she's an actress, and I love Joe, but she is just so bland sometimes. Lucy and Camille, however, are better examples of female characters in the show, although later Lucy is just kind of a love interest. But before that, she's a really fun character, and during Big Time Scandal, I was actually really interested in her side of the story. And while Camille is technically Logan's girlfriend for most of the show, she's mostly just a method actress who always goes to extremes, and she's included in a lot of plots and schemes outside of Logan, which I enjoy. She's just very entertaining to watch. Gustavo receives some development in this show, as we learn that he actually does care about the guys, and his hard exterior is an effect of his childhood, but they don't really touch on it too much. I wish we learned more about Kelly, honestly, because she was holding this group together, and she deserves more appreciation. And the rest of the Big Time Rush ensemble is honestly just a collection of characters that are pretty one-dimensional. I mean, there's this guy literally just named Guitar Dude because he carries a guitar around and strums it occasionally. He never gets a name, and he just kind of shows up. He kind of disappears in the later seasons. There's also the Jennifers, just girls named Jennifer, who are mean. And while these characters are all one-dimensional, they did kind of provide a unique comedy to Big Time Rush, and because they stayed consistent and weren't one-off characters, they were pretty entertaining and pretty memorable. Like, I would rather remember Guitar Dude than DZ. And to wrap up this section, I'm just gonna say some of my favorite and least favorite episodes from each of the shows. From Jonas, I really liked the episode Pizza Girl, Season 1, Episode 3, Lovesick, which on Google it's called Date Fate, Season 1, Episode 10, Season 1, Episode 15, Home Not Alone, Season 1, Episode 18, Double Date, and then Season 2, Episode 1, House Party, and then probably Season 2, Episode 6, The Secret. It's harder for me to remember the episodes of Jonas. I don't know, Season 1 is just kind of bland in my opinion. There weren't a lot of standouts for me, and for Season 2, I just kind of picked the episodes that had some of my favorite moments, since most of it's all connected anyways. And then my least favorite episode is probably Season 1, Episode 17, The Tale of the Haunted Firehouse. Honestly, a lot of the episodes on the show is decent. There's not a lot of bad ones. Some of my favorite episodes of Big Time Rush include, well, I did mention that I really like Big Time Audition. Big Time Party, Season 1, Episode 11. Big Time Girlfriends is one of my least and favorite episodes. Big Time Reality, Season 2, Episode 15. Season 2, Episode 20, Big Time Breakup, is honestly really, really sad, but it is one of the best episodes of television ever. I say that sarcastically, of course, but it is pretty good. Season 3, Episode 1, Big Time Backstage. Season 3, Episode 9, Big Time Gold. Season 4, Episode 2, Big Time Scandal. I think that's enough of my favorite episodes. My least favorite episodes of this show would probably be Season 4, Episode 10, Big Time Cartoon. That one is almost unwatchable for me, just because they spend like this whole episode in these like green screen suits and they look so stupid. And then the last like 10 minutes of the episode is all animated. And then season 2, episode 22, Big Time Wedding, it just felt so stereotypical. Now I'm going to touch on notable episodes, aka the TV specials and movies that each show had. And while Big Time Rush loved airing these 1-hour TV specials and marketing them as TV movies, Jonas never had any of those. They did have a Halloween episode, season 1, episode 17, The Tale of the Haunted Firehouse, which I just mentioned as one of my least favorite episodes from the entire show. The episode aired on October 11, 2009, and the episode includes this strange fourth wall break and narration from Kevin, who was telling the story of a ghost that the others encountered. I just didn't enjoy this episode because I found the editing to be kind of strange, and the whole ghost thing did end up just kind of being a prank. It's kind of your classic sitcom ghost episode, but it was kind of interesting how it was filmed with a handheld camera to give the illusion of like found footage or like a vlog. It's just that there are so many Halloween episodes on Disney Channel shows, and this one just doesn't even top. If you think about The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody when the apartment was haunted, like it just never would compare. Just like the random cuts with the narration was just really random to me, and it didn't really fit in with the rest of the show. Now, Jonas doesn't have any other holiday specials except for season 1, episode 2, Groovy Movies, when they forget their mom's birthday, or season 1, episode 16, titled Forgetting Stella's Birthday, where they forget Stella's birthday. Now I'm going to talk about the Jonas Brothers 3D Concert Experience movie. On February 27, 2009, the Jonas Brothers 3D Concert Experience movie hit theaters, and it was directed by Bruce Hendricks, and produced by Disney, of course. This movie was clearly meant to be seen with 3D glasses, but I just watched it on Disney+. The movie features real recorded videos of the brothers' performances on tour, with some stage behind-the-scenes segments. Also, in this movie, they're not playing their characters, they're just the Jonas Brothers, but they might as well be because the behind-the-scenes segments were just so scripted and staged that it just felt like they were in character. Demi Lovato and Taylor Swift also make cameos, which makes this whole thing pretty iconic. They also sing the theme song Live to Party in one of the performances, so I guess I can make it about Jonas in a way. I'm also a fake fan because this movie made me figure out that Big Rob, who plays Big Man on the show, is their real security guard and a rapper, and he's really cool. Honestly, this movie just reminded me of the Big Time Rush episode Backstage Rush, which also featured real-life recorded performances mixed with scripted behind-the-scenes parts, but I honestly prefer Big Time Backstage. This movie was just kind of bland. It's also marketed as a documentary when it kind of really isn't. Speaking of Big Time Rush, once again, Big Time Rush is a longer show, so there's way more specials and stuff to cover, because already the first episode, Big Time Audition, was an hour long, and then the season 1 finale titled Big Time Concert was also an hour special. In this special, Griffin decides to stop Big Time Rush's first concert as he wants to now focus his company on audiobooks. So he sends the boys back to Minnesota. Kendall wants to go back to playing hockey, Logan wants to keep studying to become a doctor, and Carlos wants to be a superhero, I guess. James, however, is very upset because he's always wanted to be a pop star and feels like his only opportunity is taken, but he does run into Hawk, this guy from Gustavo's competing brand Hawk Records, and Hawk promises to make him famous again. So he takes James back to LA to be a famous solo singer. Gustavo goes to retrieve the boys and reform BTR on his own accord, and they see that James has redecorated their old apartment at the Palmwoods, and he's only focused on going solo because Hawk is treating him good. But Hawk is completely altering who James is just for fame and money. The boys decide to host a audition to find a replacement James, but James ends up coming back anyways. And the boys are about to go on for the concert, but then Hawk and his little British assistant, Rebecca, played by Miss Camilla Luggington, kidnap the boys, which is pretty insane. They literally get kidnapped and tied up, and then Carlos falls down the stairs, but he frees all of them. Anyways, Hawk ends up going to jail for this, but he literally gets set free later, and he's still a problem. It ends with the boys performing their little concert, and a screen that says their musical journey continues. The boys also have a Halloween episode, season 2, episode 5, titled Big Time Halloween. It's not an hour special, thank God, because I do not like this episode either. I have high expectations when it comes to Halloween episodes. Season 2, episode 8 serves as the Christmas special titled Big Time Christmas. And in this special, Griffin is once again being a problem and forces the band to make a Christmas EP before they can go home for Christmas, which is really rude. They also have to have 2 celebrity features on the EPs, so the episode guest stars Miranda Cosgrove, Miss iCarly herself, and Snoop Dogg, who actually sings Boyfriend with them on their real album. Also, Fabio's there for some reason. This is actually not the only time Fabio guest stars. The episode actually ends with the boys being stuck in LA, so aside from Kendall, none of the boys get to spend Christmas with their families, which feels messed up. Also, at the beginning of this episode, Camille gives Logan a Christmas present, and she says, "Don't open it until Christmas morning," and he never opens it, so I will never know what she got him, and that has bothered me for years. Anyways, this episode's pretty cute. Classic Christmas special. It's all about friends or the family we have or something, and their Christmas covers are pretty good, except for that stupid, like, Alvin the Chipmunks parody thing they did with Snoop Dogg. I didn't like that. Season 2, episode 11 is titled Big Time Beach Party. This episode was also marketed as a 1-hour TV movie. This episode is all over the place. There's so many plot lines and it doesn't really make any sense. There's like this plot with the pirates from SpongeBob, and then James thinks this girl he meets is like a mermaid, and then Kendall ends up in a motorbike race with a random dude, and there's just so much going on. And the celebrity guest star is like Russell Brand, which is like disgusting, and Chris Pine's dad for some reason. And then they sing a cover of the Beach Boys, which is honestly fine. And then they sing Boyfriend again. I don't know, I didn't really like this special. All the characters just kind of felt extra stupid. These aren't technically specials, but they did have the episodes Big Time Pranks and Big Time Pranks 2, which happened in Season 2 and Season 4. Basically, the boys have an elaborate prank war with each other and other characters from the show. And in the show, it's stated at their annual events, so I guess the entire Big Time Rush show takes place over 2 years, despite the boys aging way more than 2 years. Anyways, the Big Time Prank episodes are way more memorable than others of the show, and have a unique humor to them. The show's finale is also an hour special, but I will talk about that later. And then I promised to touch on this. So, Big Time Movie was filmed between seasons 2 and 3 and released on March 10th, 2012, straight to TV, unlike the Jonas Brothers concert movie. And it was directed by Savage Steve Holland and written by Scott Fellows, the creator himself. The movie follows Big Time Rush as they start their world tour, mentioned in season 2, in London, but it actually ends up with them becoming spies and saving the world. So, it is so far off from the rest of the show that I refuse to believe that it is canon. It also makes no sense. It's also not that serious. The whole thing is basically a tribute to the Beatles, which people argue is the original boy band, and I would say yes. But the boys only sing covers of the Beatles songs in this, and ironically they get a hold of this like super secret classified device that's in the shape of a beetle, and it's actually an anti-gravity device. And then there's this random spy girl named Penny, and they have to save her dad from this evil guy named Moon, and James has a crush on the spy girl, and they wear suits like a James Bond movie, and there's a bunch of fight scenes and technology things, and it's just so disconnected from the show that it feels crazy. And it has a lack of all the fun side characters that I mentioned earlier, so it kind of just feels so different, and I don't like to acknowledge it. It's not canon because they never mention the events of it in the show, so it's not real, it's just a dream. The whole movie's just a fever dream. Now for my favorite part of this video, and probably going to be the longest segment, I wanted to discuss the top 2 most popular canon ships from both of the shows. Ships, or relationships basically, are one of my favorite parts of most TV series, and Jonas and Big Time Rush had some really good ones that I was always rooting for. My little child heart adored, and I still adore these couples to this day. I'm going to break down 2 couples from Jonas and then 2 from Big Time Rush and discuss my feelings on them and basically the timeline of their relationships. And we're going to start with Joe and Stella. Joe Lucas and Stella Malone are the central couple in Jonas. Stella's a longtime friend of the brothers, and she's also their stylist. In the very first few episodes of season 1, Stella gets jealous anytime that Joe finds another girl attractive or talks about them. Joe's also jealous anytime Stella talks about other guys, especially this one jock named Van Dyke. It's not really explained how long each of them have had a crush on each other. They don't act on these feelings until season 1, episode 10, Lovesick. Stella invites Joe to go with her to a fashion show, which he worries is a date because they're going alone. Even though they both want to go on a date with each other, Joe's worried that if he dates Stella, it will ruin their friendship. He keeps canceling on her. Realizing that Stella's actually getting upset by this, he decides to apologize by inviting her to the school's basketball game, and he shows up despite the fact that he is sick and needs to perform on basically the equivalent of Good Morning America the next day. Both of them admit to liking each other but decide to stay friends because it would be safer. Throughout the first season, there are a few more episodes featuring them. In season 1, episode 11, Three Musketeers, Joe gets jealous that Stella has to kiss Van Dyke for the school play. He ends up stopping the show and kissing Stella on the cheek. He and Stella have to pretend to date for a photo shoot, so an actress will stop pretending to be in a relationship with Joe for fame in season 1, episode 12, Frantic Romantic. And in season 1, episode 18, Double Date, Van Dyke asks Stella out and she turns him down because Joe seems upset by this. When he realizes that Stella only turned Van Dyke down because of him, he encourages her to go on the date. But Joe, being Joe, is still jealous and shows up at the restaurant to sabotage their date. At the end of the episode, Stella's mad at Joe and the two argue, which results in their very first kiss. This kiss is kind of strange because it's not really acknowledged afterwards, and their kiss in the second season is kind of like their big first kiss moment, even though this already happened. But honestly, this is one of my favorite Joe and Stella moments. Their chemistry in this scene is probably the best here. And then in the season 1 finale, Exam Jam, Stella's upset that she can't go on tour with the boys because she's gonna miss Joe. And that's basically the end of season 1. But like I've been saying this whole video, season 2 is where the drama kind of becomes the focus. The boys are staying at a mansion in LA for the summer, and Stella and Macy are going to stay in their guest house with Stella's Aunt Lisa. In the first episode of the second season, House Party, after arriving in LA, Joe wants to become official with Stella. He ends up meeting Vanessa Page, a famous actress that causes a misunderstanding between the two. So Stella says that they should just stay friends. Stella says that they had a nice moment back in New Jersey, but remaining friends would be the best, since they're just from different worlds. In Back to the Beach, Joe ends up getting a part in a movie titled Forever April to star as Vanessa's love interest, which causes tension with Stella. The only reason Joe ends up getting the role is because he sees Stella during his audition through the window, and he's able to act like he is in love with Vanessa. In Date Expectations, Stella begins dating a guy named Ben that she meets while hiking, and Joe is very jealous of this guy. But Stella continues dating Ben anyways. In America's Sweethearts, Joe's director Mona tells Joe to kiss Vanessa during a photo shoot to stir press for the movie. Joe has feelings for Vanessa, but when he talks to Stella about this, she says that he should make sure that Vanessa likes him before he kisses her. Stella talks to Vanessa and she admits that she has a crush on Joe and is excited for the kiss. But during the shoot, Stella gives Joe a thumbs down, making him think that Vanessa doesn't like him, so he ends up just kissing her on the nose. Stella admits to Joe that she lied and she was just jealous, but he reminds her that she's dating Ben. So the two talk it out and Stella tells Joe to give Vanessa a shot. He tells Vanessa that he likes her and the two run away from the photo shoot together. From then on, they're dating. In a Wasabi Story, Joe, Stella, Vanessa, and Ben decide to eat sushi together, and Stella goes to comfort Joe after he eats wasabi, and Ben quickly realizes that there's obvious feelings between the two, and he breaks up with Stella. Stella admits that she wasn't even that upset about it. When Vanessa asks questions about what happened, Joe admits to her that he and Stella were almost a thing. When Joe steps out, Vanessa tells Stella to stay away from Joe, and the two nearly get into a catfight. In Up in the Air, Mona offers Stella a job as wardrobe on Forever April, and Vanessa is not happy. Despite this, they pretend to be friends in front of Joe, because Stella doesn't want to come off as jealous, and Vanessa thinks that Joe will stop liking her if he finds out that she doesn't like Stella. Joe then brings Vanessa over to the house to stay for the weekend while her house gets fumigated, and Vanessa tells Stella that she will not leave until she quits her job on Forever April, but Stella refuses. The next day on set for the movie, Joe wants to surprise Stella and Vanessa by coming down on a harness attached. Stella and Vanessa fight again, and Vanessa threatens while he's to get up on the roof. Stella ends up standing up for herself and decides to just quit, but then Joe appears and stands up for her. Vanessa breaks up with Joe, admitting that she is jealous and that he and Stella have something special that they don't have, and immediately after breaking up with Joe, she starts talking to a different guy, so I guess I can't feel too bad for her. In The Flirt Locker, a popular movie blogger thinks that she's in a relationship with Joe after he flirts with her, and she posts about it online. With Stella's help, they try to get the girl to break up with Joe, and she ends up accidentally hurting Joe's feelings when she points out a list of his flaws. Some of these things include telling him that he was bad at expressing his feelings and terrible at commitment. But Stella, you are too. While he's on a date with the blogger, to scare her away, Stella tells Joe that she loves him. The blogger ends up leaving for Zac Efron, and Stella admits that her love confession to Joe was fake, so he gets upset and leaves. Stella then tells Macy that while she was pretending to like Joe, she realized that she does actually like Joe, although it feels like her feelings never really left for Joe anyways. In Boat Trip, Joe is still upset from the last episode and gets defensive, saying that of course he remembers when Stella's birthday is. Ironic, because in the first season, there's a whole episode dedicated to Joe forgetting her birthday. Nick and Macy trick Stella and Joe to go on a boat trip together to mediate their fighting. Macy tells Joe that Stella still likes him despite everything that she said, and Nick tells Stella that she hurt Joe's feeling just because the list of flaws came from her. Little side note, the side plot in this episode is so absurd. It just surrounds David Henry from Wizards of Waverly Place and Kevin competing in a game show over a fake feud or something. Anyways, back to the boat. Joe realizes that he really likes Stella, which is taking him forever to realize, and now he wants her to be his girlfriend. So Nick and Macy tell him to just ask her out because summer's almost over, meaning that they have been battling these feelings for months. At the end of the episode, Joe finally asks Stella to be his girlfriend, and the episode's left on a cliffhanger. The next episode, titled On the Radio, begins with Stella finally saying yes to Joe's proposal, and they begin dating. Joe wraps up filming Forever April, and this scene just kills me. It's the way Vanessa's edited over the water and Joe's in the sand. Like, he really just got this job because he was Joe from Jonas. He's not a good actor. Like, Joe Lucas is a bad actor, not Joe Jonas, if you get what I mean. While listening to the brothers' interview on a radio show, Stella discovers that Joe was offered the sequel of Forever April that would be shooting in New Zealand for quote-unquote a long time, and she gets upset that he didn't tell her. So Stella decides to leave for New Jersey to avoid drama. This then leaves on a cliffhanger for the finale of the show Band of Brothers. Joe runs to the airport to stop Stella from leaving, and by the way, this airport chase scene will never compare to the worldwide one from Big Time Rush. Just when Joe thinks that he lost his chance, he finds Stella, who explains that she couldn't get on the plane. Stella says she doesn't know where she belongs, and Joe says that she's meant to be with him. When she's about to leave, Joe says, "I love you," and proceeds to do a very romantic love confession. She responds by saying, "I love you too," and they share a kiss. A long-awaited kiss, must I say. The show ends with the two of them finally getting together and never talking out all the issues they clearly have. In my opinion, Joe and Stella are one of the most complicated relationships on like a Disney show ever, and I don't really find it that satisfying when they get together at the end of season 2, just because like we never really get to see them actually date, and I feel like so many of their fights are so unresolved, and they do bring up a lot of good points about why they wouldn't work, but they always just ignore that.
Oh, I'm sorry. If I'm so sickeningly adorable, then why did you come to the restaurant tonight?
Why'd you go out with Van Dyke?
Because he asked me. Isn't that how it works, Joe? A guy asks out a girl because he likes her?
What about a guy not asking out a girl because he likes her?
What?
I didn't want to wreck everything you and me don't have together.
That makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, well, sometimes things don't make sense.
Okay, like...
Honestly, I just find Joe and Stella kind of annoying, but I still think they work together and they should be together, I guess. And now I'm going to move on to the most prominent ship in Big Time Rush, Joe and Kendall. I actually just recorded this entire part, but my mic was turned off the whole time, so now I have to re-record it, so that's kind of annoying. Joe and Kendall's story doesn't really work without mentioning Lucy and somewhat James, so they will be included in this as well. And they have a lot of storylines, so this might be the longest section of this whole video. I'm gonna get into it. Joe Taylor is first introduced in Big Time Love Song, Season 1, Episode 5. The boys are all scared of Hollywood girls, referring to the Jennifers, and they want to meet a normal girl. Then we meet Joe, who has just moved to LA from North Carolina. In this episode, it says that she's an aspiring singer, but for the rest of the show, she's an actress. I think this is just because they needed something to set her aside from Kendall. All the boys immediately grow a crush on Joe. James has a side plot in this episode, so he doesn't really go after Joe except for one scene, but Logan and Carlos are desperate to get her attention by pretending to be British and a bad boy, but Kendall just wants to be himself. After all the boys try to serenade her with the song Any Kind of Guy, she reveals that she has a boyfriend, but she's actually lying because she just wants to focus on her career and not worry about boys, which is so fair. After this episode, it is not acknowledged that all the boys once had a crush on Kendall's girlfriend. In Big Time Break, Kendall wants to hang out with Joe, but she keeps reminding him about her boyfriend. Katie overhears Joe talking to her mom about her fake boyfriend, and then she tells her brother. Kendall questions Joe about her boyfriend, and she lies and says that he's visiting today. She hires an actor to pretend to be her boyfriend, but he immediately fumbles. She and Kendall fight about lying before agreeing to go out sometime. In Big Time Party, Kendall invites Joe to the boys' party, and he makes sure that she's the only one in VIP. She calls this their first date. Honestly, so cute. As the two get to talking, they worry they have nothing in common because Joe doesn't like hockey. This is resolved because they have so much fun distracting bidders together, they don't really care. In Big Time Dance, Joe is waiting for Kendall to ask her to the dance, but instead he keeps asking her favors to help set up for the party. At the end of the episode, she approaches him and says that she just wanted him to ask her to the dance, but he says that he didn't think he had to since they were already together, which shouldn't be an excuse. You should still do something cute for your girl, Kendall. After this episode, Joe and Kendall are officially dating. In the iconic episodes guest starring Jordan Sparks, Big Time Sparks, Joe spends the entire episode being jealous of Kendall and Jordan, which is so random and so strange to happen right after they get together. In the season 1 finale Big Time Concert, the couple share their first kiss before Kendall has to leave for Minnesota. But he ends up coming back and the two are very happy. In the season 2 premiere Welcome Back Big Time, the boys return from tour, and Kendall sees Joe hanging out with her new co-star Jet Stenson from her TV show Newtown High. I always loved that they had Joe starring in this CW show called Newtown High. It kind of just felt like Riverdale before Riverdale existed. Kendall discovers that Jet is playing Joe's love interest and that he has previously dated every single one of his co-stars, so he immediately becomes insecure. Jet's pretty similar to Vanessa, honestly. He continues to have a crush on Joe for most of the show, actually. It's kind of weird. But Joe assures Kendall that there is nothing going on and that he can even go on set to see. Kendall then disrupts the filming for Jet and Joe's kiss scene, resulting in him getting kicked off set. Later, when he's looking at Joe's phone, he sees a text from Jet that upsets him, and Joe explains that she was just telling Jet that he was a talented actor. Upset that Kendall doesn't trust her, she tells him to forget about her, implying that they're over. But Kendall leaves her a voicemail apologizing and tells her to show up to their concert if she still likes him. And while the boys are performing one of my favorite songs, Till I Forget About You, Joe shows up in the crowd holding an I Heart Kendall sign. Kendall Schmidt and Caitlin Tarver actually recreated this at one of Big Time Rush's concerts, and it was adorable. Throughout this season, there's a few episodes like Big Time Girlfriends and Big Time Beach Party where Joe and Kendall struggle to hang out because of their busy schedules with music and acting, but they find that any time together is special. In Big Time Sneakers, the couple make their relationship red carpet official after some drama surrounding Jet and a publicist. They share a cute moment in the Christmas special involving a hockey stick and mistletoe. They attend the prom together in Big Time Prom Kings, but Joe's dad, who's in the CIA, separates them because Joe broke her curfew to hang out with Kendall and she's grounded. Literally, in the next episode, the most dramatic breakup in television history happens. In Big Time Breakup, Joe earns a lead role in a movie series that's basically a parody of Percy Jackson and Harry Potter. The movies require her to move to New Zealand for 3 years in the next week. Ironically, New Zealand is also the place that Joe Lucas was gonna go to. And at first, Joe lies and says that she can't get out of her Newtown High contract, so she has to stay in LA with Kendall. When he realizes that she's lying, he decides to act disgusting and be rude during one of their dates, so she'll break up with him. And he ends up stabbing their waiter with a fork. Twice. Joe sees through this act, however, and says that she wants to stay with him. But Kendall explains that this role is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and she has to go. The couple decide to make the most of their last day together in one of the most dramatic scenes ever. Kendall, however, forgets about their goodbye kiss, a running thing between the two. So the boys and Kendall chase after Joe in the airport so he can get his goodbye kiss. The couple share a romantic kiss before Joe leaves. But of course the boys have to perform the incredible song worldwide in the airport, creating one of the most iconic music videos ever. In real life, Caitlin Tarver was just going on tour. But in the show, Kendall and Joe break up and she moves to New Zealand to film her movies. Only 3 episodes after Joe's departure, in Big Time Rocker, Lucy Stone moves into the Palm Woods. Lucy's an aspiring rock star with cool red streaked hair. She calls Big Time Rush's music cute, and Kendall is desperate to prove her wrong. He makes it clear that he doesn't want a new girlfriend after Joe. Oh, how he's wrong. James and Carlos are also into Lucy and spend most of this episode trying to make moves towards her, but ultimately she puts both of them in the friend zone. In the season 2 finale, Big Time Move, Lucy winks at Kendall while they're performing all over again. In season 3 episode 2, Big Time Returns, James calls dibs on Lucy, forbidding Kendall from talking to her. Lucy is upset that Kendall won't talk to her and is disgusted by the boys' dibs rule. Preach. In response, Lucy calls dibs on Kendall and kisses him on the cheek, forbidding any other girls from talking to him. James and Kendall finally approach her, and then she denies having feelings for Kendall and undibs him. But as she's walking away, she winks at Kendall again, implying that she does have feelings for him. In Big Time Double Date, Kendall helps Lucy lie to her parents by going to dinner with them. Lucy has been lying to her parents about her red hair and the fact that she performs rock music. When her secret is ultimately blown, Kendall defends her and she joins the boys to play Cover Girl. She doesn't even sing, and also that is the least rock song ever. In Big Time Surprise, Kendall wants to ask Lucy out, but her ex-boyfriend Beau is visiting. Kendall finds out that Beau is a cheater and wants to show this to Lucy by recruiting James, Jet, and Camille for help. But Lucy catches on and sees that Beau's a cheater and dumps him for good. While she is talking to Kendall in the elevator, he asks her out and they share their first kiss. But when the elevator doors open, it's revealed that Joe has returned to the Palm Woods early. Apparently, the test audiences really hated the first movie and burned down the studio. This episode creates a cliffhanger that leads right into the next episode, Big Time Decision. Joe and Lucy tell Kendall to make a decision, and if they don't pick them, then they're going to leave the Palm Woods. During an intense montage to the song No Idea, Kendall sees all signs pointing to Lucy, but he decides to ignore the signs and listen to his heart and shows up at Joe's door. In Big Time Babysitting, Joe's mad it took Kendall so long to choose her, which is so fair, honestly. But the two decide to move on past the Lucy situation and start over. In season 4, Kendall and Joe continue dating and have cute moments, but they're not really essential to the plot, so I'm skipping over them. But in Big Time Scandal, Lucy Stone releases a song called You Dumped Me for Her, which should have been a real song. This little snippet we hear is incredible. But the song is all about Kendall and his stunt in the elevator. They call this Getting Swifted in a reference to Taylor Swift. They also make a reference to the Kanye West and Taylor Swift situation, which is really interesting to me. Kendall goes to apologize to Joe about the situation, but she's not even mad at him, she's mad at Lucy. When Joe and Kendall go to approach Lucy about the song, they're surprised that she's not mad at them, and she did not write the song with the intention to sabotage Kendall or the band. But when Kendall mentions that the song's inaccurate, it upsets her, and she decides to tell the press that the song is about him. But at her press conference, the other guys in disguise stick up for Kendall, and she decides to tell everyone that she only kissed Kendall and the song was not about him. But at the end of the episode, it's revealed that Lucy is moving back into the Palm Woods. In Big Time Lies, Lucy keeps flirting with Kendall, and at one point she locks him in an elevator and nearly kisses him, which is really weird. Kendall decides to lie to Joe about this so she won't get mad, At the end of the episode, Lucy admits that she doesn't even like Kendall and she was just trying to stir up drama so she could get inspiration for her new album. The episode ends with Joe and Lucy being friends, but I just find that whole situation very strange. Like, she was just gonna lock Kendall in an elevator and kiss him for no reason. Joe and Kendall also have this weird thing where they randomly fight and then kind of break up, like in Big Time Rescue and Big Time Rides. And these types of scenes make them really annoying, but they're already kind of bland, so I don't really care. In Big Time Tour Bus, James makes a comment about how Joe and Kendall kind of look like siblings, and unfortunately I can't unsee it. In the show's finale, Joe and Kendall end up together, but as for Lucy, it is clear that when she arrives at the Palmwoods that James is into her, and he continues having a crush on her, while Carlos kind of drops it. James calls dibs on Lucy and often says things like "she will be mine," which honestly just comes off as creepy. He often tries to flirt and impress her. One time he even buys a snake because she mentioned liking snakes in one of her songs, but she was actually just talking about bad boys. And in Big Time Rides, he buys a motorcycle and lies about being able to ride it so he could take Lucy on a bike date, but he doesn't know how to drive a motorcycle, so he ends up crashing through the apartment wall, which is crazy because I think they live on the second floor. In Big Time Pranks 2, Lucy and James end up in a closet together, and this scene's kind of funny, but it's also kind of weird.
Ooh.
On.
You should date me.
You're not my type.
And later during the prank war, James jumps in front of Lucy and gets eliminated, saying that he doesn't want anything to hurt her. She says this is really sweet and they almost kiss, which is a crazy jump, but whatever. And their moment is interrupted by confetti being shot at them. In one of the following episodes, Lucy leaves for a European tour without saying goodbye to James, which upsets him. In the finale, James is still mad at her, but finds out that she's attending the Tween Choice Awards as well. In this episode, James states that his lifelong dream is to kiss Lucy, which is so crazy. When Lucy goes to present an award, James joins her on stage and surprises her, saying that he is mad at her for leaving without saying goodbye. She reveals that she only came back so she could see him and the two kiss on stage. Once again, crazy jump because she was just saying that he isn't her type. Anyways, the finale ends with James and Lucy dating now, which I hate. Like, if James wasn't so creepy, maybe I'd like them, but it just felt lazy to throw them together just so James could have a girlfriend in the last episode, especially because there wasn't any proper build-up between the two. Like, I'd rather have her end up with Kendall at that point. I don't know how unpopular it is, but I prefer Joe and Kendall over Kendall and Lucy. But I really like Lucy as a character. I think she's way more interesting than Joe, to be honest.
This opportunity only comes once in a lifetime.
Maybe you only come once in a lifetime.
You are gonna be amazing. We forgot the goodbye kiss.
I know.
And now onto my favorite Jonas couple, Nick and Macy. They were a little bit unexpected as they only occurred in the second season. I'm also pretty sure that it was Nick Jonas's idea to have the characters get together, but I can't find where I read that now, so I might be lying. Anyways, let's talk about Nick and Macy. In season 1, Macy is mostly just a crazy fangirl who is a huge fan of Jonas, but she likes all the brothers equally. She's also a part of every single sports team. And honestly, if they kept that style of personalities from the first season, I think Kevin and Macy would have gotten together. They had a few scenes together that could have been built up, including the episode where Kevin lied to Macy about her being able to sing so she could be a backup singer for their track, but then he ends up telling her the truth and they kind of have a moment. And honestly, I wouldn't have been mad about it because I think they would have been pretty fun and they could have been funny. I think they complemented each other well. Because in the first season, Nick and Macy have no screen time or moments together that are alone, really. It's also clear that Nick cares about her as a friend, but their entire relationship arc takes place in season 2. When Macy shows up to the brothers' house in LA, she's clearly matured and is no longer a huge fangirl as she was in the first season. In the episode House Party, Nick says that it's good to see her and the two hug, and he realizes that something has changed between them. In Back to the Beach, Macy gets an offer to work for a famous surfer named Stone Stevens, played by a young Austin Butler. Nick says that she won't take the job because she already works for Jonas, but the truth is he's just jealous because Stone likes Macy. Macy's upset at Nick because of this and she quits working for Jonas. Nick tries to change her mind but ends up hurting himself while surfing. And as she goes to comfort him, he tells her the truth, that if she worked with Stone he wouldn't get to hang out with her, and she decides to keep working for Jonas. In And Action, Macy is giving the brothers' neighbor, DZ, a makeover for his upcoming date. Through this, Macy tells Nick the qualities she likes in a guy, while clearly describing him. Nick continues to be oblivious about this, even when Macy says that when a guy likes a girl, he should tell her, so she's not confused by mixed messages. At the end of the episode, Macy reveals her feelings to Nick, and she says that she wants to be more than friends. Nick admits he feels the same way, and they almost kiss, but they're interrupted by Stella. In The Secret, it's revealed that the two have been keeping their relationship a secret from everyone. They argue about keeping their relationship a secret when Big Man's daughter, Kiara, played by China Anne McClain, discovers their relationship and encourages Nick to write Macy a song. He performs Your Biggest Fan for Macy and reveals their relationship to his brothers and Stella. This is my favorite Nick and Macy moment because I've always wanted Nick Jonas to sing a song for me on a guitar. Also, Nick raps in this song, which is great. After this, the series seems to kind of forget about the couple and only kind of gives them a few scenes as filler. In a Wasabi story, Macy impresses Nick and Kevin by being good at golf. I guess they forgot the fact that she was a part of every sports team in the first season. In Up in the Air, it's their 1-month anniversary, and Nick decides to make her a mug after Kevin mentions that she likes homemade gifts from her family. She ends up getting him a watch, explaining that only her family does the handmade gifts thing, and she acts ungrateful about the mug, but then he surprises her with earrings and she's happy. In Direct-to-Video, which is the only Kevin-centric episode of the season, it also features Frankie and the dad. But the side plot in this episode is that Frankie has a crush on Macy despite the fact that Nick's dating her, but he stops liking her when she fails to bake good cookies. I just kind of wanted to mention that Tom is really uninvolved in all of his sons' lives, and he's a terrible manager for the band. In Boat Trip, Nick and Macy take Joe and Stella on the boat, and they're not really relevant. They kind of just work together to get Joe and Stella together, and they call each other honey a lot, which almost makes their relationship feel more forced in my opinion. In On the Radio, Macy helps Nick decide between the band and a solo career. They decide that he can do one solo song with a famous producer and still be a part of the band. Macy states that they never lied to each other and they will always talk out their issues, unlike Joe and Stella. The couple have a lack of scenes in the show's finale, but they do end up together. I love Nick and Macy's dynamic. I love how she goes from a fangirl to being his girlfriend, every girl's dream. But of course, they're just really cute, and in comparison to Joe and Stella, they're a lot easier to watch. And I've always loved them, like they've always been one of my favorite ships from Disney Channel. In the episode The Flirt Locker, Nick gives Macy a kiss on the cheek, and this is the closest thing we get to a kiss between the couple. Paul Hohen did confirm on Twitter that they filmed a kiss scene for Nick and Macy, but it was just kind of cut. I'm also pretty sure at the time, Disney Channel had a rule where they could only have one kiss per season, and of course they were going to give that to Joe and Stella. It's a shame, honestly. I feel like their relationship could have had a lot more development and been more interesting, but like I said, at the beginning of season 1, they were really built up, and then the later half, they kind of just dropped the whole plot. But the secret dating thing was kind of fun if it didn't only go on for like 2 episodes.
What I'm trying to say is, I like you. And I've been wanting to tell you ever since I saw you this summer.
There it is. What took you so long?
I guess I was just scared.
If anyone should be scared, it's me.
Why?
Because this is crazy. You're a rock star, and I'm your
Macy.
Macy.
In comparison, their Big Time Rush counterpart, Logan and Camille, kissed a lot. So let's talk about them, because they're my favorite Big Time Rush couple. Camille Roberts and Logan Mitchell meet in Big Time Audition when she comes over and slaps Kendall, revealing to be a major method actress at the Palmwoods. And in Big Time Crib, she calls Logan hot, and he seems a little weirded out by this. But in Big Time Love Song, when Logan is about to go ask out Joe, Camille stops him and slaps him while kissing him in character. It becomes a running joke that Camille will come over to Logan, slap him, and then kiss him because she has a crush on him. I still don't know why she's doing all that. It's not really that bad because Logan actually kind of likes it, we figure out later. In Big Time Party, Logan talks to Kendall and Joe about Camille's crush on him, and Joe tells him to give her a shot. And then he imagines them in a James Bond-esque movie before agreeing. However, he seems to have forgotten that he's in a relationship with Mercedes, Griffin's daughter from the episode Big Time Demos. So Logan decides to go between the two girls all night until they eventually figure out what he's doing and they throw him in the pool. Mercedes breaks up with him for Guitar Dude, and Camille says that although she's mad at him, she's still going to dance with him. In Big Time Dance, Logan wants to ask out Camille, but he's never asked a girl out before. So he enlists the help of James, but ends up failing 3 separate times. Camille tells him that she's never been asked out before and wants it to be special. So at the dance, Logan shows up on a horse, which is Kendall and James in costume, dressed as a prince, and asks Camille to the dance, which she happily accepts. And after this episode, I just have to assume that they're dating. In Big Time Video, Camille's dad is forcing her to move back to Connecticut because she hasn't booked a role in 6 months. To prevent this from happening, Logan tells Camille that she can be in the band's new music video, which ends up being The City Is Ours. In the season 1 finale, Big Time Concert, Logan asks for something to remember Camille by since he's going back to Minnesota. While he's expecting a kiss, she just slaps him instead. And in the season 2 premiere, Welcome Back Big Time, Camille's excited since Logan's back from tour and tackles him. And And now for one of the worst episodes, but also the most entertaining from this show, Big Time Girlfriends. Camille needs help rehearsing for an audition, but Logan's going to a Venus exhibit for some reason. So James offers his help, and while they're rehearsing lines, there's a kiss in the script. The two quickly kiss as the script says, but then kiss a second time, letting the moment get away from them. Then Logan walks in and the two run away. Camille convinces James to tell Logan the truth, but chickens out instead and says that he used his toothbrush. Camille doesn't know this, so when she approaches Logan, he says this.
If he wants to put his mouth on something worn out and gross, that's his problem.
Excuse me?
I was about to dump it anyway.
Once Logan actually figures out what happened between the two of them, he's upset and he and James battle in a spitball fight. And surprisingly, they make up relatively quickly. One thing about the Big Time Rush boys is that they're never going to keep fighting for longer than an episode. At the end of the episode, Logan forgives Camille for cheating on him, but breaks up with her, stating that 96% of first relationships end up in breakup, so they should get their heartbreak out of the way. Their breakup scene is ironically their best scene together, and we get like the best kiss from the entire show, but they're literally breaking up and kissing. It's complicated. Even though Camille and Logan are technically broken up at this point, they have this weird on again off again thing, so I never really know if they're together or not. In Big Time Christmas, he gives her canned ham and she gives him a present that he never opens, as I mentioned earlier. But she does kiss him on the cheek despite them literally just breaking up. In Big Time Crush, Logan has a crush on the new girl at the Palm Woods named Peggy, but he's worried that this is going to hurt Camille's feelings since their breakup was a little bit unclear. Finally, dressed as a grandma, for some reason, Logan approaches Camille about the breakup and they both decide it's okay to see other people because they're just friends. At the movies with Peggy, Logan sees Camille sitting by herself and Peggy says that he can go after her, realizing that he still has feelings for her. Peggy's stronger than me would have been so mad at Logan. But before Logan can apologize and admit that he made a mistake, Camille's date Steve shows up and they leave to see the movie together. In Big Time Reality, Griffin decides to give the boys a reality TV shows. In order to stir up more drama and viewer attention, the show's producer asks Logan and Camille to act like a couple. And at first they're hesitant because they've just broken up, but eventually get carried away with the on again off again act. Every time the camera's on them, the two kiss and then she slaps him. Not too different from real life. Mind you, Camille is technically dating Steve at this time, so that's wild. Also, they kiss like 10 times in this episode, which has to be a record for a Nickelodeon kids show. Also, I'm like certain that at the time, open mouth kisses weren't allowed on Nickelodeon, but here we are. At the end of the episode, Logan admits that he did not mind Camille kissing him just for the show. In Big Time Prom Kings, Logan helps James claim the title as Prom King in fear that if Camille and Steve win, they're practically engaged. When James asks him if he still likes Camille, Logan admits that he doesn't actually know, but he doesn't want her to be committed to another guy. Kinda toxic if you ask me. Later at the dance, Logan has to ask Camille for help so James can escape his date's security guards because he was going on a date with a famous actress or something. Instead of getting mad at Logan for interrupting her time with Steve at the prom, she just says, "Darn, you're cute." Also, James and Logan end up winning Prom King and Queen, and we never see Steve again. In Big Time Single, Logan and Camille get back together and then break up in 1 minute, so Logan can understand heartbreak since Kendall is still upset that Joe has just left for New Zealand. In Big Time Rocker, while everyone is freaking out over new girl Lucy Stone, Logan's entranced by Camille, who is preparing for her upcoming role in a spy movie. This episode B plot is just Logan being attracted to Camille because she's wearing a wig and boots, and every time she leaves the room, she kisses him. He's really into this. Also, at one point, Camille gets too into character and becomes an actual criminal and robs the Palm Woods, and then she and Logan get away with this. In conclusion, Logan's a little freak, and that's okay. In Big Time Secret, Logan becomes freakishly jealous when he suspects that Kendall and Camille are dating. But in the end, it turns out that Kendall and Camille were just ice skating together. I was gonna say Logan's like insane in this episode, but honestly there's so many episodes where a girl will talk to Logan and Camille will get so mad, even if they're not even together. So I guess that's just the way they work. In the season 3 episode, Big Time Returns, Logan's excited because Camille always tackles him when he comes home from tour. In this show, they say tackling, and it's definitely an innuendo, but like, no, she literally like tackles him. But is disappointed when she does not show up at the apartment door. He explains that this time, he doesn't want to make the first move on Camille to avoid the responsibility of the relationship. So instead of knocking on her door, he goes to the hallway and coaxes her out by yelling at the neighbor. When they finally greet each other for the first time in months, she doesn't tackle him and just returns to her apartment, much to his disappointment. We find out this is because Buddha Bob has convinced Camille it'll be better if Logan makes the first move to avoid making the same patterns and mistakes they previously made. After a series of attempts to get Camille to make a move on him, Logan realizes that Buddha Bob has been telling her to avoid him. When he finally confronts him, Buddha Bob provides a very intellectual analysis on their relationship. I'm happy he is so aware of their toxicity. To avoid either of them making the first move, Logan and Camille decide to tackle each other and conclude that they're back together again. In Big Time Double Date, Logan and Camille get into an argument because he wants to limit their number of weekly dates due to some data he read. Because of this, Camille immediately agrees to go on a date with Jet, which is an insane jump. I've just kind of accepted that they'll just break up over one fight. Upset, Logan decides to make a robot girlfriend, but when that doesn't work out, he finds a girl online named Lindsay to go on a date with. Camille finds out about this, and Jet suggests that they go on a double date, hence the title of this episode. During the dinner, the two are continuously arguing and ignoring their dates. When James accidentally pushes them into each other, they immediately make up and begin kissing again. At the end of the episode, Logan asks why they break up so much, and Camille's response is, because we like making up so much. All the previous conversation about things being different between the two of them has flown out the window. In Big Time Decision, Logan and Camille are helping Kendall decide between Lucy and Joe. Logan reveals that he decided to date Camille after a long process of love science. In Big Time Gold, one of my favorite episodes, Logan forgets his and Camille's 15-month anniversary. I'm assuming the anniversary counts the time that they were broken up with each other as well. Camille accidentally thinks that the necklace Kendall bought for Joe's birthday is Logan's gift to her and takes it. When Logan goes to ask for the necklace back, he returns to the apartment covered in lipstick marks instead. This is another running joke between the two of them, and I kind of love it. This episode is so messy because first off, Kendall forgets Joe's birthday, and surprisingly, she doesn't get mad at him. And secondly, Logan helps Kendall buy the necklace by paying for half of it, so he argues that it's kind of his. It's just so messy. At the end of the episode, the two girls forgive the guys and settle on matching gold bracelets. Along with season 4 being the worst season of Big Time Rush, it also has the least Logan and Camille scenes. In Big Time Lies, Logan lies about being sick to avoid going to see a play with Camille, but she catches him in the lie and is upset. And despite the fact that he actually does end up getting sick, he goes to see the play with her. In Big Time Breakout, all the boys are deciding what they would do if the band breaks up, and Logan decides to host a game show with Camille. And in the show's finale, Big Time Dreams, Camille and Logan end up together. And despite the fact that they were so incredibly toxic, they are my favorite Big Time Rush couple. They get a lot of screen time, and they're very self-aware with the fact that they make a lot of mistakes in their relationship, and they're on again, off again, and they're always fighting, but they never really make it everyone else's problems. So I think that's just the way they are, and I find them very charming, and they just match each other's freaks so well. And I think I like them more than Nick and Macy. Nick and Macy are obviously healthier, but it's just that they get so much more screen time than Nick and Macy, so I kind of love them more.
Maybe we could hug too? I mean, friends hug, right?
It is the friendly thing to do.
Additionally, Kevin from Jonas does end up single, which is fine because he never really got a love interest. If they were edgy, they probably could have done an enemies to lovers thing between David Henry and Kevin. It would have been iconic. I think the only person that Kevin could have ended up with was the Scandinavian girl named Anya from that one episode, but honestly it's fine that Kevin ends up single. And for Mr. Carlos Garcia from Big Time Rush, he technically does end up with a girlfriend, but his main love interests plural, throughout the show is the Jennifers. He goes on a date with each of them. I think it's kind of interesting how they try to give them all different personalities, but they're all toxic to him, so he doesn't end up with any of them, which I'm happy about. But in the finale, which I'll touch on in a minute, he does end up with Alexa Vega, his real life wife, which is very cute, but it's just so random. I think if they wanted Carlos to get a girlfriend, they could have brought back Stephanie King from the Big Time Terror episode, because she did go out with him in Big Time Dance. Or Dara from Big Time Cameo. She was an actress with an evil stepmother, but they were adorable. And before I conclude the ship section, I do want to mention that a common theme in both of these shows is that the boys are incredibly girl crazy. There's multiple episodes where a new girl will show up, and then they'll all have crushes on her, and they'll all fight over her. Like, Big Time Rush kind of acknowledged it. It feels kind of objectifying towards the women, but honestly, it was a very common theme in these guy-centered kids shows. Not that it's okay, it's just something I noticed when rewatching. And now I'm going to discuss the finales of each of these very special shows. Don't worry, this is not the end of the video essay. I still have a lot more topics I want to cover, but this is just going to kind of finish summarizing everything that happens in the shows. The Big Time Rush finale was titled Big Time Dreams. In production, it was called Big Time Award Show, aired on July 25th, 2013, and is a 1-hour special. It was directed by Savage Steve Holland and written by Scott Fellows and Lazar Sarit, I believe. Big Time Rush is attending the Tween Choice Awards, and not only are they nominated for multiple awards, they're also performing on the show. The Tween Choice Awards is an obvious parody of the Nickelodeon Kids Choice Awards, and instead of slime, they have purple goop, and instead of orange blimps, they have purple rockets as awards. As the boys are in dress rehearsal, we see our first very special guest star, Nick Cannon, which he was like everywhere back in the 2010s. We get a montage to the song Get Up, not my favorite song of theirs. The boys are rehearsing for the performance the following night and also filming a commercial for a mac and cheese brand they're sponsored by or something. Gustavo explains that the day of the awards, all their dreams will come true. Carlos explains that his dream is to finally get a girlfriend. Despite the many love interests he's had throughout the show, none of them stick. He states that the Jennifers don't count since he's only been on one date with each of them, but I swear he was dating blonde Jennifer for a minute. James says that his one dream is to kiss Lucy, which I still say is insane. He's still mad at her because she left for her European tour without saying goodbye. Logan says that his dream is to find out where they keep the purple goop for the awards show. And then later he says that his dream is to walk the red carpet. So I feel like they didn't really know what to do with his character since he's already dating Camille. And speaking of Camille, she and Joe are presenting one of the awards. And I love the name of the movies that they say they star in because they're all like parodies. And speaking of that mac and cheese commercial that the boys are filming, it's for Sharky's Mac and Cheese, which is where my problems begin with this episode. It's revealed that the CEO of the mac and cheese brand is evil and is planning to use the QR codes in the commercials to brainwash the audience into loving mac and cheese. This show just wanted to return to the spy sci-fi stuff from the movie, and I really hate it. Like most of the episodes in this show, there are a lot of side plots. Katie and Mrs. Knight are stuck at home watching the awards show after shrinking their VIP badges. This was their way of including the characters who couldn't be at the awards show, including Buddha Bob, Mr. Bitters, and Jet Stenson. It's revealed later that Jet forgot about the awards, which is a little bit funny. Katie's upset because she wanted to go to the awards show and meet Austin Mahone, which really just explains what era this show came out in. Mrs. Knight tries really hard to cheer Katie up by throwing a watch party with all of her friends from the Palmwoods, and the two end up sharing a really sweet scene in the bathroom. Kendall and the other boys vow to help each other's dreams come true during the awards. The Jennifers return, one of them as a cardboard cutout, to tell Carlos that he must choose one of them before the end of the night. Kendall tells Carlos that whichever Jennifer catches him should be the one that he picks, but when he pushes him, Alexa Vega from Spy Kids ends up catching him before disappearing. Carlos is now convinced that she's a real spy. Camille and Joe get slimed, or gooped, and the award of the Awesomest Music Group goes to One Direction. Wasted potential to have them guest star like they did in iCarly. While the band is trying to find the group room to achieve Logan's dream, they instead find the mac and cheese CEO's evil lair. That's a weird sentence. Before the CEO can send quote-unquote cheese men and Sharky the Shark after the boys, they escape. This is a real plot, by the way. I sound like I'm making it up. While escaping, they accidentally find the room where the goop is stored. And I just love Kendall's delivery here.
Purple.
Alexa saves the boys before they are drowned in goop. Then the boys make a deal with Austin Mahone, allowing James to present the next award with Lucy. James surprises Lucy on stage, and like I explained earlier, they end up kissing in front of everybody, which is crazy. Finally, the time has come for Carlos to pick a Jennifer, but when Alexa interrupts, explaining that she's had a crush on him since their first album, they share a kiss. And then they recruit Alexa to help them stop the evil cheese guy. I'm pretty sure his name was like Sharkus or something. The cheese guy locks up the band and Alexa Vega from Spy Kids, which they keep calling her that in this episode. They lock them in a cage with a moving wall that's going to crush them. Using some goop in a syringe, they escape and then set off to stop the CEO. They spray him with goop before he can sabotage the commercial, and they essentially save the world. This villain and plotline is so similar to Big Time Movie, which is a large reason for my hatred towards it. After saving the world, the boys win Awesomest Song and have to rush on stage. And while on stage, Kendall admits that this was his dream all along, to be with his boys in a band. Aww. The boys then perform We Are on stage with matching red outfits, along with a montage of flashbacks from past episodes, and this scene single-handedly saves the entire finale. The song's really good and all the flashbacks are actually really emotional. The last scene takes place at the Palmwoods pool, which is so perfect because the Palmwoods is like the heart of the show. The boys introduce Austin Mahone to Katie, who is very thrilled, and Gustavo is finally happy to have won a purple rocket, and Griffin buys the mac and cheese company, making Griffin the richest CEO in the world. Carlos finally agrees to date Alexa, meaning that all four boys have girlfriends. The very last moment is everyone by the pool singing Big Time Rush. And I think the very final scene is a little bit bland, and it had potential. I love that they're all together and having a little party at the Palmwoods, but we only get to hear like 20 seconds of the theme song, which is fine, I guess. I just wish we got to see more of the couples in the last scene, specifically Kendall and Joe and Logan and Camille, because they didn't really get a lot of screen time in the finale, and they were such a big part of the show. And I also would have liked to see more of just the four boys together because this is like their last moments together. And the finale's a little bit lackluster, and the spy portion definitely could have been eliminated to make it flow nicer, but I guess it's not Big Time Rush without an absurd side plot. The series finale of Jonas, titled Band of Brothers, Season 2, Episode 13, aired on October 10th, 2010. The episode was directed by Ryan Shiraki, and Ryan also wrote it. In the previous episode, before the finale on the radio, it's explained that Joe is going to do the sequel to Forever April, which is filming in New Zealand. All this has caused the world to think that Jonas is breaking up, and to help stop the rumors, Macy decides to schedule a surprise concert for the brothers that night. However, also from the last episode, upon hearing the news about Joe leaving, Stella decides to leave LA and return to New Jersey. The episode opens up with Kevin deciding to help Joe go after Stella, but they have some car trouble. For some reason, Kevin has this sports car that runs on food oil, and it never starts. Macy calls Stella and tells her that Joe is going after her and that if she leaves, she's likely going to lose any chance of the two being together. But Stella says that she's made her decision. While driving, Kevin and Joe get stuck in the middle of the road, and Joe has to run the last mile to the airport while the song Critical plays. The entire season has been leading up to this airport chase scene that I previously explained in the ship section, but Joe thinks that Stella has already left on her flight, but ends up finding her, and she admits that she couldn't get on the flight. And the scene ends with Joe confessing his love for Stella, and then they share a kiss. The drama between this couple is really drawn out and based solely on miscommunication, which is a reason that the season feels very slow. Somehow, Kevin and Joe make it back in time for the very important gig that Macy has been trying to stall with very bad jokes. The brothers finally perform the song Feeling Alive for the crowd, and the concert scene features some characters from throughout the season like Vanessa, Mona, and Kiara. The brothers announce at the end of the concert that Jonas is not breaking up. Ironic. Through a handheld video from Macy, Nick explains that he'll be recording one solo song with the famous music producer Mantra and spending the rest of his time back home with Macy. Kevin says goodbye to his car before explaining that he'll return to LA to direct David Henry's movie, which has been renamed to The Life of Thomas Jefferson, but it will still have ninjas. Joe and Stella are sitting by the pool and explain that they're happy living in the moment together. Finally, they're together. Macy then concludes her video by saying goodbye to Summer and Casa de la Jonas. The final scene of the show features the main characters on the beach at night, assumably after their concert, and they're sitting around a fire pit singing an acoustic cover of LA Baby. And I stand by the fact that this would have made way more sense as a Big Time Rush final scene, just because they had that moment in the pilot with the fire pit. But whatever, it's a cute scene. We have Joe and Stella sitting together, and then we have Nick and Macy together, and the boys are playing guitar. And I love LA Baby, one of my favorite songs from Jonas. But I'm not sure if they were aware that this was going to be the last episode of Jonas, because I just feel like it was very lackluster, and it feels a little bit unfinished. The only plot point that's like worth mentioning is Joe and Stella finally getting together. Nick and Macy essentially have no development in their relationship in the last half of the season, and they don't have a plot in the finale other than waiting for Joe and Kevin to arrive. And then Kevin has this strange side plot where he's trying to get oil to fix his car, so he has to talk to this random food truck owner. And I would have liked to explore his arc with directing a little bit more in depth, because that was literally the only thing defining his character other than being the quote-unquote dumb one. The finale was very Joe-centric, but so was the entire season, so that's not really a surprise. And I just feel like it lacked the emotional part that most series finales have, but it was decent. It's still a fun episode. This next part isn't really relevant to the actual show, but mostly my personal preference, and I'm going to be talking about the sets from both of these shows. I love set design, and I just wanted to discuss it a little bit. Big Time Rush takes place in LA, and the boys live at the Palmwoods. The Palmwoods is like a central part of this show. It is like the heart of Big Time Rush, aside from the boys, in my opinion. So they live in apartment 2J, and their apartment's a little weird in my opinion. They have a whole episode on renovating it in Big Time Crib, which I believe is the 3rd episode of season 1. And basically they have this yellow swirly slide, which is like the centerpiece, you can say. They have this living room, they have an orange couch, and they have a TV above a fireplace. They have like hoverboards against the wall, and then they have a kitchen with the island, and you have to walk through the kitchen to the bathroom. The kitchen's like this dark blue color, and the fridge is see-through, which is kind of fun. And then by the door, they have this locker that Kendall hides in one episode. And then if you go, like, I guess technically if you're walking through the door and you go to the right, there's this little bookcase area where you have all these toys. And this apartment layout's really weird because I think you'd have to go through that hallway and that's where the bedrooms are. I'm also under the impression that all 6 people that live in that apartment have to share one bathroom, and that sounds terrible. There's also a dining table area. It's kind of a weird layout, but the slide is mostly the most fun part. I've always wanted to go down it, but I cannot figure out what the bedroom situation is here. This is like one of the very few few kids shows that never shows the characters' bedrooms. And I can't figure out if all 4 boys share one room, which also, once again, sounds terrible, but I know they share rooms. But I think if it's split in 2, then it's probably like Logan and Kendall and then James and Carlos. I don't know. It kind of sounds like they all share one room. Either like a 3-bedroom apartment because Mrs. Knight and Katie have their own rooms, or maybe they share a room. I don't know. This just feels like a very large apartment, and I just think it's weird we never see one of their bedrooms. Also in the Palmwoods, we have Camille being their next door neighbor in apartment 4J. We never see the inside of her apartment. We just see like the front door. And then Jo also lives on the 2nd floor, I think. But we do see her bedroom in a few scenes, and she has Big Time Rush posters on her wall, and she has a balcony. Also, I think in like season 4, Lucy also lives on that floor. The Palmwoods also has the lobby that we always see, and then the elevators. There's a few sets of the hallways, but they all look the same. They're probably just rearranged. The lobby is your basic apartment lobby. So much stuff went on in that lobby. Mr. Bitters was just going through it. We know by his desk there is the Palmwood safe that Camille robs. There's computers in the lobby too that they occasionally use. And then there's a bulletin board that's always changed. It's kind of a long lobby where the entrance, there's a desk, and then you go to the elevators. We also know there's a school at the Palmwoods, and every time they show the school, it just looks like a really cramped room with a lot of desks. The lobby does lead out to the pool. It is really cool how they built a real in-ground pool that was always full. The pool was very small. Like when all 4 boys are in it, it looks like they can't move. It was just so lively, and they have the cabanas, they have the chairs, and it always looked fun. And then the second most relevant location they filmed at was Rock Records, where we have this hallway with a bunch of posters. Later, there's a huge Big Time Rush poster. There's the seating area. There's the recording studio. It looks so small for all 4 boys, and they always shared one microphone. And then there's Gustavo's office, which has this secret exit. And the color scheme of that was like this red, very symmetrical. It was fun. Didn't really stand out too much. And because this was a single cam show, a lot of scenes were filmed on location on the Paramount lots, which was fun. I love seeing shows that go outside their usual sets. And for Jonas, season 1, they had their high school. It was called Horace Mantis Academy. They all had school uniforms that were red and blue. The school's color palette was like yellow and green. The school was kind of cool because there was this greenhouse section in the middle. But then other than that, it was basically the same. It had lockers. It had this huge staircase that went 2 directions. They never have a lunchroom, so the cafeteria tables are just in the middle of the hallway. I'd never really remembered the school. There's so many iconic Disney Channel schools, so this one just kind of falls flat. And then we have the Lucas Brothers house, which is a renovated firehouse. There are 3 poles in the middle, which there's a lot of comedy that comes out of it. It's also fun to see them all slide down. The bottom floor has this kitchen and a living room and a little dining area. I only really remember what the kitchen looks like because of that one episode where they're home alone and they make a mess. But if you go upstairs, we have the boys' room, which doubles as their music studio. All 3 brothers do share a room, but it's not really a room. It's just this giant floor space. We got Nick's bed and Joe's bed. And then we have this device that makes the drum set come down, which is really cool. Kevin sleeps in like this little bunk for some reason, which is like messed up. I hope that's by choice, Kevin. And then they have a music studio. It's bigger than the one in BTR, and they record in it sometimes. The boys also have a high-tech closet that Stella created called the Stellavator, which is practically just a mix between Hannah Montana's closet and Cher's computer from Clueless. I don't know where Frankie or the parents sleep, but I'm just going to assume that the firehouse is bigger. Their house is really cool, but honestly, there's so many iconic Disney Channel houses that this one doesn't really compare. And then in season 2 of Jonas, the most prominent place would be their mansion. I'm not really sure if this was like a real mansion, but it looked like it. It also had a pool, this patio area, and there's also an attached guest house that was where Aunt Lisa, Stella, and Macy lived. And it was cool. It had like these purple walls, and the girl shared a room. It had a little kitchen. It was cute. But the mansion is huge. It has this giant living room, this giant dining area. There was like this music area beneath the stairs. In the LA house, we never see their bedrooms. We just imply that they're upstairs. They'll go up and down the stairs sometimes. There's this huge kitchen. And in one episode, I noticed there's fish tanks in the kitchen, which is really cool. Once again, I wanted to visit. I wanted to swim in that little pool. And they also lived on this huge hill. But most of season 2 is filmed on location, like in different parts of LA. Like we saw the beach a lot. It just made it look so fun and lively. And they were really living it up out there. Both of these shows take place in Los Angeles, California for the most part, aside from like season 1 of Jonas, which takes place in New Jersey. But they do take place in LA, and they glamorize it so well. The Hollywood vibes and the nostalgic feeling. And I live in LA now, partially probably because of these shows influencing me, but I just love seeing all the recognizable places like the Santa Monica Pier and the Chinese Theater and the Hollywood Walk. It's just, I love California. And these shows do a very good job at glamorizing Hollywood. And now for arguably the most important part of each of these shows, the music. I'm also going to break down some of their other albums outside from each of their respective shows and just talk about their music as a whole. In 2010, Big Time Rush released their debut album titled BTR under Columbia Records / Nickelodeon. The album was meant to be a collection of 17 songs from the TV show. It features their most popular songs such as the theme song, Big Time Rush, Boyfriend, and Worldwide. It also features 2 additional versions of Boyfriend featuring Snoop Dogg and New Boys. The song Oh Yeah on the album was the first song to be written by all 4 boys. In my opinion, this is Big Time Rush's most iconic album with the biggest hits and most memorable. My favorites from this album include Famous Until I Forget About You. And from April 2011 to December 2011, Big Time Rush went on their debut tour, spanning 51 shows across the US, Germany, and the UK. I kind of forgot to mention I will also be mentioning their tours because I feel like it's a big part of their music. In 2011, their second studio album Elevate released featuring 13 songs underneath Columbia Records / Nickelodeon. There are 3 songs on this album to not be featured in the show, including Show Me, Invisible, and You're Not Alone, co-written by Kendall. For the first album, all of their songs were included in the show. In my opinion, Elevate is their best album. It features some of my favorite songs such as Love Me, Superstar, and All Over Again. Exclusive versions of this album included Blow Your Speakers Out and Epic, both of which are now considered unreleased songs as they are not on streaming, but I love Blow Your Speakers Out, so come back. From February 2012 to March 2012, the boys went on the Better With You tour featuring 17 shows in the US and Canada meant to promote the album Elevate, and One Direction opened up for them, which seems insane, but at the time it made sense. In 2012, the Big Time movie soundtrack dropped as an EP and featured 6 songs from the movie, all of which were covers of the Beatles. I'm not going to talk about this because you know how I feel about the movie. In July 2012 to October 2012, the boys went on the Big Time Summer Tour featuring 66 shows through all the Americas, and Leon Thomas from Victorious and Cody Simpson opened from them. Leon Thomas is a pretty big artist now. In 2013, the boys released their third studio album, 24/7. At this time, the boys were getting way more involved in their own music as the show was progressing, which is better because most of these songs were actually written by the band members themselves. Over 40 songs were initially written for this album, but it had to be cut down to 15. Some of these unreleased songs were leaked on the internet and still exist today. This album was also underneath Columbia Records / Nickelodeon and was their last album before hiatus. In my opinion, it's my least favorite album of theirs, but it still features some really fun songs like Love Me Again, which kind of has a controversial story. I'll just briefly go over it because I know a lot of people talk about it, but basically the boys had written Love Me Again and the demo version was considered too dirty, so Nickelodeon told them to change it, but Carlos decided to leak the demo version on his YouTube channel. The video is still up, and now that's the version that they perform on tour, and I'll be honest, I do prefer the demo version. I think it's a lot more fun. I think the reason I don't love this album is because it is attached to later seasons in the show, which are harder to watch just because they're not as fun in my opinion, but it still has some great songs like Confetti Falling and Picture This. From June 2013 to August 2013, the boys went on the Summer Break tour where they performed 44 shows co-headlining with Victoria Justice. This tour also served as a farewell to Victorious, which had just been cancelled. The episode Big Time Tour Bus guest stars Victoria Justice and mentions this tour, and that episode was directed by Carlos, and it's a fun one. In February of 2014, the boys went on a short tour featuring 11 shows titled the Live World Tour, and it was their last tour before hiatus. They went through North America and South America, and I just figured out that Shawn Mendes opened up for them, so that's cool. And after taking a long break from music, in 2021, they returned with the single Call It Like I See It, along with a few surprise live shows, one of which only featured 3 members as Kendall had gotten COVID. In 2022, they released Not Giving You Up, Fall, and Honey, all of which were singles. They also released Dale Peya and Suave, which were originally going to be part of a now cancelled Spanglish EP. Actually, I'm not sure if it's cancelled or just postponed, but I don't really think they're working on it anymore. Additionally, they dropped 3 acoustic versions of their songs from the show, including Worldwide, Music Sounds Better, and I Know You Know. And I prefer this version of I Know You Know more than the original. They also released the full version of Paralyzed, the song from the episode Big Time Rocker, and it's a song that fans have been wanting a full released version of for years. So this was a great call, as Paralyzed is probably one of their top songs. Listening to their new music, it's obvious that their voices have grown so much, which I love to appreciate, and they are incredibly good at harmonizing. In June 2022 to March 2023, they went on the Forever Tour, which was considered their comeback tour and featured 50 shows. Dixie D'Amelio and Spencer Sutherland opened up for them, and this is also the tour in which they sold out Madison Square Garden. In 2023, the boys released their fourth album titled Another Life. It featured 15 songs released under their own independent label with BMG, and I just want to say how happy I am that they now have complete creative control over their music because it makes it so much more personal and it kind of eliminates that curated Nickelodeon sound that they had been doing for so long. All of the songs on the album are either written by at least 2 members or all the members together. The only exception to that is Shot in the Dark, which was released on the deluxe version of the album, and it's the song from the episode Big Time Terror. Before this, it was considered unreleased, and Shot in the Dark is one of my favorite songs of theirs, so I was very appreciative when it came out. The boys wrote this album together during 2 group trips to Miami and Big Bear, which they've documented a little bit of, and I'll be so real, I adore every single song on this album and their new sound. My favorites from this album are Waves and Forget You Now, and I just love this album. Go listen to it. It's a little bit different from all their older stuff, but I still really appreciate it. And from June 2023 to August 2023, they went on the Can't Get Enough tour. The tour featured 39 shows and promoted their album Another Life. Max, best known for the Nickelodeon movie Rag, and Jax, who sang the Victoria's Secret song, opened up for them. I actually saw Jax live for free in Castle Rock. She's pretty cool. They also made a few vlogs for this tour and posted them on YouTube, and they're kind of funny. In 2024, they released the single Only One, and this year they very recently dropped a new single called I Want You Here All the Time. And speaking of upcoming tour, the boys are going to embark on the worldwide In Real Life tour this summer, and your girl is going to the Los Angeles and Las Vegas show, and I am beyond excited. Caitlin Tarver, who played Joe Taylor, and Stephen Kramer Glickman, who played Gustavo Rock, are their openers, so this is a very nostalgia-based tour, which I'm excited to see. The boys have also been marketing this tour by saying they're going to sing every single song from the show, which spans about 40 songs, so I'm not sure how they're going to fit that in like a 2-hour show, but I'm excited to see. This also means they have to perform Blow Your Speakers Out from the episode Big Time Superheroes, so just release the full version already, please. And I would love it if they actually dropped some of those previously scrapped or leaked songs, such as Intermission and Cruise Control, songs I very much love. A lot of these unreleased songs featured Logan or Carlos at the forefront, which is a shame that they were never released, just because I felt like they were often put in the back burner during the show's run. But I really appreciate with the new music how they really strive to include all 4 members equally, but now it feels very equal, and I really appreciate that. It makes the music feel more special and like a group project. And now moving on to the Jonas Brothers, who have released a lot more music and gone on a lot more tours. Also, when I was doing research for this video, half of their music was not on Spotify, which made this very difficult, but I just checked this morning and it's all back, so thank you Jonas Brothers. Before their first album was even released, the boys went on a short fall promo tour spanning November 2005 to December 2005 and was meant to promote their upcoming first album. It featured 10 shows and they opened up for the Cheetah Girls and Ali and AJ. In 2006, they released their first album titled It's About Time. It featured 11 songs and it was released through Columbia Records, and I kind of had to hunt for this album as I mentioned earlier, and I've never listened to it before considering it did come out the year I was born. Nick was a baby during this. He was only 14 when it was recorded, and the sound is very different. Obviously, they were just so young. 3 of these songs are covers, including the very iconic Year 3000. The album is painfully 2006, but that's okay. My favorites are 6 Minutes and I Am What I Am. From January 2006 to March 2006, the boys went on a short tour titled the American Club Tour that featured 28 shows promoting this album. In 2007, their second album, titled The Jonas Brothers, was released underneath Hollywood Records and had 14 songs. This album self-titled, and I really consider this to be their real debut album. My favorite songs from this one are SOS and Hollywood. Technically, this album also includes Year 3000 in some versions, and some versions also include Kids of the Future, their song for the movie Meet the Robinsons. I personally kind of have beef with this movie just because I had to watch it so many times because they were always rerunning it. And from June 2007 to October 2007, they went on the Marvelous Party Tour, sometimes called the Prom Tour, and it featured 46 shows to promote their second album. Then they went on another tour from January 2008 to March 2008 called When You Look Me in the Eyes Tour. It featured 39 shows and was meant to continue promoting the Jonas Brothers album. In 2008, they released their third album titled A Little Bit Longer. It featured 12 songs and was released through Hollywood Records. My favorites from this one are Burning Up and Love Bug, but this is my favorite album out of their older stuff, so I love a lot of the songs. Some versions of this album included Live to Party, which is the Jonas theme song. From July 2008 to March 2009, the boys went on the Burning Up tour, which included 48 shows to promote the album a little bit longer. This is the tour that the 3D concert movie is based on, and in 2009 they also released live versions of the setlist from that movie. It's probably one of their most iconic tours of all time. In 2009, they dropped their fourth album, Lines, Vines, and Trying Times, and featured 13 songs through Hollywood Records. They had these boys working because they were dropping a new album every single year. I didn't remember this album at all, so I had to sit back down and re-listen, and my favorite songs are Fly With Me and Before the Storm featuring Miley Cyrus. From May 2009 to December 2009, the boys went on a tour just titled World Tour, and it included 86 shows all around the world, and this tour had many opening acts such as Jordin Sparks and Demi Lovato. In 2010, the Jonas Brothers dropped the Jonas soundtrack, and this featured all 13 songs from Season 2 of Jonas, or Jonas LA. Season 1 never got an official release, aside from the theme song, Live to Party. My favorites from this album are LA Baby and Critical. However, I definitely prefer their real-life music to the soundtrack. There's nothing wrong with Disney music, I love it personally, but it's just that the Jonas Brothers' real stuff had such a rock influence to it, and that's a lot more fun and seems more personal to them. From August 2010 to December 2010, they went on a tour called Live in Concert. This is their 7th tour, and it was meant to promote their 4th album. They performed alongside Demi Lovato and the cast of Camp Rock 2. Forgot to mention that also during this, they were featured on the Camp Rock and Camp Rock 2 soundtracks. I love Camp Rock, and I love a lot of the songs on those soundtracks. From October 2012 to March 2013, they went on the Jonas Brothers World Tour, featuring 28 shows, originally meant to promote their cancelled 5th album. 3 songs from the original project were performed and later released as live recording, and then they were going to go on another tour, titled Jonas Brothers Live 2013, but this tour was cancelled 20 days before, due to the band breaking up over creative differences. Then the boys remained broken up for 6 years before, in 2019, they released the album Happiness Begins. They dropped Sucker as a surprise single, announcing that they were back together. Happiness Begins features 14 songs, and it was now released under Republic Records. This is my favorite album of the Jonas Brothers, and some of my favorite songs include Only Human and Roller Coaster, and I might like this album a lot because I did hear most of these songs live when I saw them. And along with this album, they also dropped a documentary titled Chasing Happiness. From August 2019 and February 2020, the boys returned to touring and went on the Happiness Begins tour. This tour featured 92 shows. Then, in 2021 to 2022, they went on the Remember This tour spanning 52 shows. In 2023, they released the album titled The Album, and it featured 12 songs, and once again it was underneath Republic Records. This includes really fun songs like Waffle House and Wings. I think Summer in the Hamptons is underrated and it's my favorite. And to promote that album, they went on the tour titled 5 Albums, One Night, the World Tour, from August 2023 to October 2024, and it featured 106 shows. And this year, they are dropping an album in August titled Greetings from Your Hometown, and it's going to feature 14 songs. They've already dropped 3 singles, including Love Me to Heaven, Slow Motion, featuring Marshmello, and most recently, No Time to Talk. Along with this new album, they're also going on a tour that was previously named Jonas 20 Living the Dream Tour, but after canceling some shows, it was now renamed to Jonas 20 Greetings from Your Hometown Tour. This tour is celebrating the new album and the band's 20-year anniversary. The boys have been on over 10 tours together, which feels insane and also exhausting to me. The brothers have also done a number of residencies in various locations, such as Vegas and Broadway. The boys were also featured on many soundtracks. They once did a cover of Poor Unfortunate Souls. I believe it was for the anniversary of The Little Mermaid. The Jonas Brothers just have such an extensive discography that I couldn't acknowledge every single single or remix or soundtrack that they've been a part of without adding another 30 minutes to this video. Hey guys, little update. I have been editing this video for so long that Greetings from Your Hometown is now out, and both the Jonas Brothers and Big Time Rush are on tour right now. Also, for opening night, the Jonas Brothers did bring out Demi Lovato, and No, I Am Not Okay. And last night, Big Time Rush brought out Jordin Sparks, so I am definitely not okay. BTR and the Jonas Brothers have very different sounds going for them. I enjoy listening to both of their music. I will say that I prefer the Jonas Brothers music from outside the show. As for Big Time Rush, I won't say that I like their music in the show better. I'll say that the music in the show is more iconic and definitely more popular, but I'll say that their stuff outside the show is very personal to them, which makes it all the more important. So I'm not going to pick a favorite out of those. Really quickly, I just wanted to highlight some guest stars that both of these shows had because they had a lot of cool ones, and it kind of acts as like a time capsule for the era that these shows were running. In Jonas, we had Bridget Mendler in the very first episode playing Penny, David Henry as himself, he's technically a reoccurring character, Austin Butler as Stone Stevens, China Ann McClain as Kiara, she's also reoccurring, Adam Hicks as DZ, reoccurring, he disappears after a few episodes, I think it was to film Ziegler Luther, Emily Osment as herself, Emma Roberts as herself, Samantha Boscarino as Amy, you might recognize her as Skylar from Good Luck Charlie, and Sheena Shea as the pizza girl / Maria. Now Big Time Rush has a very extensive list. They have Miranda Cosgrove as herself, Victoria Justice as herself, Alfonso Ribeiro as Block Captain McAllister in the Fresh Prince parody episode, Fabio as himself, he's technically a reoccurring character, he shows up 3 separate times, Nicole Scherzinger as herself, Snoop Dogg as himself, Cher Lloyd as herself, Jordan Sparks as herself, Elizabeth Gillies as Heather Fox, Alexa Vega as herself, Nick Cannon as himself, Austin Mahone as himself, Tara Strong as Miss Collins, a reoccurring character, Chris Paul as himself, Symphonique Miller as Kat, she was also featured on the song I Know You Know, Lisa Rena as Brooke Diamond, aka James's mom, Carmen as themselves, they were also featured on the song For You, Patchy the Pirate from SpongeBob, Chris Pine's dad, and Yo Gabba Gabba. Not that I'm keeping track of points, but Big Time Rush definitely takes the cake for some of the coolest guest stars. Also, arguably the funniest. I don't know why some of them agree to this, but it makes for a very entertaining surprise every time you rewatch. As I mentioned earlier, both of these bands became big faces for their networks that they aired on respectfully, so that meant that Disney and Nickelodeon were putting these boys in a lot more than just their own TV shows, and had them all over the networks to promote the songs and the shows. So now I'm just going to list off a few projects that they did outside of their shows. I will also be mentioning a few of their projects outside of Disney and Nickelodeon. Disney Channel had the Jonas Brothers everywhere, including the Disney Channel games, which Nick recently described as Love Island with a bunch of Disney kids, which is a crazy way to describe that. One of their first projects on the network was a guest starring role on an episode of Hannah Montana. The brothers were also a part of the Friends for Change movement, and they performed a song along with Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, and Demi Lovato. Insane lineup. The boys were also in the movies Camp Rock 1 and 2. The boys did not play themselves, instead they played the characters Shane, Nate, and Jason Gray, part of the band Connect 3. They were also featured on both of the soundtracks. The Jonas Brothers voiced the Cherubs in the movie Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian, the second movie in the franchise. The brothers also provided multiple songs for the soundtrack, including the song Fly With Me. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this show called Songland, but basically they would bring in a bunch of songwriters to write a song for a certain artist, and one episode was the Jonas Brothers. The Jonas Brothers also guest starred on an episode of Dash and Lily, a Netflix series. Nick was an executive producer. The boys also released multiple concert films and documentaries. On Netflix, the Jonas Brothers do have a special titled The Jonas Brothers Family Roast that featured all of their wives at a time, and they kind of ate. The Jonas Brothers also had a video game made for the DS that was inspired by the show Jonas. As for Nickelodeon, they were doing a lot of promo and press, but they weren't doing too much on the network. They were included in the iconic Nickelodeon Christmas promos, the sleigh ride, and the Jingle Bells song. They had a few crossovers, but technically I think they're just guest stars because I can't tell if the boys are playing themselves or their characters in these episodes, but they were on an episode of How to Rock and an episode of Marvin Marvin. The BTR boys voiced these beaver creatures for an episode of the Penguins of Madagascar series. I had no idea that this show existed until now, but I think it's funny that the beavers have their hair. There were also 2 Big Time Rush video games, one for the DS and one for Wii, both inspired by the show. They were also featured on 2 Nickelodeon game shows, Brain Surge, where they were accompanied by cast members Sierra Bravo and Stephen Kramer Glickman. James ended up winning his episode of Brain Surge. And also an episode of Figure It Out, in which they were slimed after losing the game. Aside from the band, a few other members of the cast were also featured on different episodes of Figure It Out. Speaking of getting slimed, I was looking into it, and I swear Big Time Rush was slimed once during the Kids' Choice Awards, but I cannot find a video of it anywhere, so I might have just made that up. Like, I found a video of them performing with Snoop Dogg, and Snoop Dogg gets slimed, but I swear that the boys got slimed once. The boys also had a half-hour documentary special that aired on Nickelodeon titled Music Sounds Better With You. It followed the boys as they recorded their second album Elevate and went on tour, ending with the world premiere of their music video for their song Music Sounds Better featuring Man. In 2013, the Jonas Brothers officially announced their split, and in 2014, Big Time Rush went on hiatus. And in 2016, One Direction broke up, so I guess I never found peace.
What? Tim! Did you hear One Direction is breaking up?
Jonas LA only lasted for 2 seasons, but to be fair, I don't think the boys even liked the show. The boys were way more known for their actual music and camp rock anyways, so this did not come as a surprise. To be honest, the show was probably holding them back and not great for their image. Of course, after Jonas got cancelled in 2010, the band did end up breaking up 3 years later. Nick Jonas, of course, went on to do solo music, which I absolutely adore to this day. I still blast Jealous and Chains. Nick is also a pretty good actor, starring in a bunch of fun projects such as Jumanji and its sequel, and Scream Queens. And of course now he's married to Priyanka Chopra, now named Priyanka Chopra Jonas, and they have a daughter. Joe Jonas was also going crazy with his solo music, joining the band DNCE, where they released the hit Cake by the Ocean. Joe has also just released a solo album titled Music for People Who Believe in Love, and the deluxe version has 18 songs. Joe also has 2 daughters with his ex-wife. Kevin Jonas kind of vanished from the spotlight after the band broke up. He did participate in a short-lived series titled Married to Jonas, featuring his wife Danielle. He and Danielle now have 2 daughters. I love how all 3 Jonas brothers are girl dads. It makes sense to me. Kevin now hosts the reality TV show Claim to Fame with his little brother Frankie Jonas. I also wanted to mention that I sat down and I watched the Jonas Brothers Chasing Happiness and Happiness Continues documentaries, and I'm not gonna lie, Chasing Happiness made me cry a little bit, but the documentary does a very good job at talking about their breakup and their rise to fame, and it breaks it down really well from all the brothers' perspective. They talk a little bit about Jonas and how much they regretted doing it.
Biggest regret in regards to the brothers, season 2 of Jonas.
But I'm happy the brothers were able to rebuild their bond as brothers first and put that before the band. And of course, I'm happy that they're back together. They announced their return via social media in February of 2019 before releasing their very first single, Sucker, in March. This happened when I was in middle school, and I remember it just being so important to me. I was running around locker to locker just screaming, the Jonas Brothers got back together. None of them cared, but I cared. And as I said earlier, they're still together, releasing their 7th album and going on tour in 2025. Big Time Rush got a great run of 4 seasons, which is the average length of a successful children's show. But I am very happy that the show ended when it did because, as I mentioned earlier, it was getting repetitive and I just felt like a lot less heart was being put into the show, and the boys looked so much older than they were when they started. Nickelodeon didn't really try to keep boys around after the show ended. Kendall did guest star on a few episodes of School of Rock as this evil guy who just hated children, I guess. And Carlos voiced Bobby in The Loud House and The Loud House sequel. As I said, Nickelodeon didn't really hold on to these guys, kind of just set them free after the show ended, and they were just so well known as a group that it was kind of hard to just put one member in one project. Once the show ended in 2013, the boys finished their final leg of tour and then went their separate ways. Kendall is now happily married and has a daughter, and they are adorable. And in terms of his solo career, he had Heffron Drive, a duo group with his friend Dustin Belt, and the group is named after the street that the two of them lived on growing up. Dustin was a guitarist for Kendall's vocals. I'm sitting in Vegas trying to edit this video. Kendall just dropped his very first solo song that's not in association with Heffron Drive. It's called Shattered, and it sounds like it should be in an indie movie. One of my favorite Heffron Drive songs is the song Passing Time, and on their deluxe album of Happy Mistakes Unplugged, they sing that song featuring Logan Henderson, and that song is so incredibly good, so incredibly sad, so incredibly well written, and I've been gatekeeping it for a while, but now I think it's time to tell the world how much I love this song. Speaking of Logan, he disappeared from the spotlight and social media for a few years before releasing a solo album titled Echoes of Departure and the Endless Street of Dreams Part 1 in 2018. It's very, very different from Big Time Rush's music, but I still enjoy it. His album never got a sequel, although he was planning on one. My favorite song of his are Evergreen and Pull Me Deep. While Carlos did release a few songs, he definitely went down the acting path. He stars in a number of TV movies, most of which he stars alongside his real-life wife, Alexa Pena Vega. He's a producer for most of the movies. For a while, he was focused on family-centered social media content featuring his wife and their 3 kids. He was also in the TV special of Grease Live, which feels important to mention because I really like that special. James also starred in a few movies. He reprised his role as Shane on the iCarly reboot. Speaking of, I love that show, and I'm upset it got cancelled. He also released an album called How I Like It. He has recently mentioned that he is releasing more solo music, and I will be seated for that. And he's now newly engaged. Big Time Rush had been teasing a reunion for quite some time, but didn't quite announce it. They did change all of their profile pictures on Instagram to the color red, and that was what I caught on, and I was beyond excited at that time. They also announced their return in February 2021 by doing some live shows to test to see if their audience still liked them. To their surprise, they sold out all of the shows very quickly, and after releasing their 4th album, they are now going on another tour in 2025. And I really wanted to see both of these bands this year just to make this video like full circle, but I didn't get Jonas Brothers tickets, so here we are. But it's okay because I've already seen them once and I was very grateful to see them. Since both of these bands are going on tour in 2025, and I've been talking a lot about each of the groups separately, I do want to talk about their recent collab. For their 20th anniversary, the Jonas Brothers hosted this surprise show in their hometown New Jersey called JONASCon, but at this con, they also brought out surprise guests, Big Time Rush, and I was sitting in my college lecture looking at TikTok. I saw this video, and I literally screamed. Well, I didn't actually scream, but I panicked on the inside because what do you mean my 2 favorite boy bands are collabing? But basically, the Jonas Brothers were having JONASCon at the American Dream Mall, and I'm very jealous of everyone who got to go. But while performing, they began to sing the song Boyfriend, and then coming down the escalator, there was Big Time Rush themselves, and they come down and perform a bunch of their songs. I think it's cool that both of these bands know each other. Also, I saw in a video that Carlos is a huge Jonas Brothers fan, so he's just like me, and it was so cute to see him meet them. And I'm going to discuss the original pilots for these shows because I got a little bit off track and I was talking about their real careers. But let's go back to these shows. Both of these shows had original pilots that were scrapped, which is not uncommon for television, but I just found the concepts of these original pilots to be very interesting. Big Time Rush was originally titled Brand New Day, and one of the pilots of this was released online. It's basically identical to Big Time Audition, except Kendall's not there because he is being played by Kurt Hansen, who was originally casted to play the main character of the show. Kurt Hansen was later replaced, allegedly because he looked and sounded too much like James. Unfortunately, I love Kendall, and no one could have done Big Time Rush like Kendall. They did, however, bring back Kurt to play the character Dak Zevon in a few episodes, so I'm happy Kurt got his moment still. This pilot was filmed in 2007-ish. In the version of the pilot that's online with Kurt, Mrs. Knight and Katie were also recasted. Katie was a younger sister still, but she was a teenager, which I'm happy they changed because I love little Katie Knight. But I feel like if she was a teenager, we would have had a plot line where she had a crush on one of the boys had a crush on her, and that just would have been weird to me. The boys were also from Wisconsin for some reason. I don't know why they changed it to Minnesota. In the leaked pilot, we also hear versions of Famous and This Is Our Someday, and they sound basically the same, it's just Kurt's voice instead of Kendall's. And it's interesting that it was titled Brand New Day because the song that they were going to sing for that theme song was later used as the theme song for the Nickelodeon show 100 Things to Do Before High School. That was also created by Scott Fellows. According to Caitlin Tarver, she was in the episode and she played a character who was going to be the main boy's love interest. So basically Joe before she was Joe.
But I was in the like original pilot.
Wow.
When Kendall wasn't even in the cast.
Wow.
But my character at that time, it wasn't like fully fleshed out what it was going to be. So I just had like one line.
All in all, I'm just happy they found Kendall because it really made the band complete.
So they flew us all to LA, us 3, for a screen test. And when he came in the room, we knew. Like he left and we looked at Scott and, like all the producers, we were like, that's the guy. 100%.
And Jonas was originally called Jonas as an acronym, and Jonas stood for Junior Operatives Networking as Spies. The plot of the show was going to be that the brothers are spies, and they have to keep it a secret from their parents and Frankie. In this pilot, their parents were played by their real-life parents, and Frankie Jonas was there as well. Tom Ducey, who played Tom Lucas in Jonas, originally played the head of the spy networking program, and Stella was a character as well, played by Chelsea Staub, now Chelsea Kane. And Stella dates all 3 brothers in this show, and she's writing for a teen magazine. So she's trying to get inside information about their band. So they're a band, but they're secretly spies. And for an interview, she described the show as a lot of lying to each other. Nicole Gail Anderson originally auditioned to play this Stella, but later when they rewrote the entire show, they brought her back and cast her as Macy. The concept of the show was changed because the brothers were becoming increasingly more famous, and they just thought that a spy show would be bad for their image, and they were right. The writers' strike of 2007 to 2008 also postponed this process and allowed them to rewrite it to just be the Jonas show that we know and love. I am so incredibly happy that they changed the concept because I just feel like the high school plot, as basic as it was, it definitely made a lot more sense for the Jonas Brothers at the time. The Jonas Brothers at JONASCon did announce that they are doing a movie with Disney Plus titled A Very Jonas Christmas. and there's no like details on it, but I'm pretty sure they're just going to be playing like fictionalized versions of themselves. It's not going to be connected to the show Jonas, but I feel like I know what the plot's going to be already. I bet it's going to be a comedy musical, and I bet the plot's going to be like, we have to make it home in time for Christmas, and they're just singing songs along the way, and they have to bond as brothers because family's important. I don't know. I'm just predicting. We'll find out this Christmas. So most of this video was recorded in the summer. A Very Jonas Christmas is now out on Disney Plus, and I loved it. Also, the brothers announced Camp Rock 3 coming out summer 2026. On to the Big Time Rush boys. I'm not 100% sure if this is confirmed, but James likes to leak things about the band sometimes, and he basically confirmed that a Big Time Rush movie is in the works and has been. I'm assuming they're in like very early production, like I don't even know if the script is written, but I'm just gonna say, similar to the Jonas movie, I am not expecting a very original plot from this. I bet the plot's gonna be that the band broke up and now they have to get it back together. And I think they're gonna make like Logan this crash out who like tried to become a doctor. Kendall's gonna be happily married with Joe. James is gonna be like a successful model or like an actor or something. And then Carlos is probably married to Alexa Vega and they have kids, and his kids will probably play his kids. Like I can already picture it. And then they're gonna learn the power of friendship at the end, and they can't live without each other. And I would love to say that I have hope that Nickelodeon will make something more original, but anyways, I'm excited for these upcoming projects as much as I'm trashing on them right now. And finally, I have talked enough about Big Time Rush and the Jonas Brothers. And I'm very sorry to disappoint if this was the reason you're watching this video, but I am not going to pick a favorite. I rather just wanted to appreciate the effect that both of these bands had on the 2010s era and discuss their rises to fame and compare how their careers were similar on different networks. Big Time Rush and Jonas were just such big parts of my childhood, and they're still such a big part of my music taste today that I just had to show some appreciation for these guys. And I am grateful for what they brought to the children's TV industry as well as the music industry. Were Big Time Rush and Jonas perfect television shows? No, not at all. And they weren't even the best shows to come out of that era. But they both provide unique comedy, and they're very entertaining to go back and look at, if you don't take them too seriously, of course. But looking back, both of the shows are just time capsules to the boys' careers and what was going on in the 2010s. They're great to look back upon, and they both mean so much to me. If you have made it this far, you're incredible. You guys can comment your favorite songs from each of the bands or your favorite episode, or if you have any experience with the bands, have you ever met them, seen them perform, you know? Just something fun, because I like to talk to other people who are big fans of the same thing I am. The Jonas Brothers and Big Time Rush, you guys will always be famous in my book. Thank you for everything you have done. Hi, so most of that video was filmed back in July. It is now January. There were about 3 hours of footage that I had to cut down. Since the recording of that video, the Jonas Brothers have now released their album Greetings from Your Hometown. They also just wrapped up their tour of the same name. Nearly every night, the band brought out a special guest and sang fan-requested songs, and because of the fan requests, the brothers did sing a number of Jonas LA songs. The brothers will also be in Camp Rock 3, which is coming out in the summer of 2026, and they are also executive producing. Big Time Rush released 2 singles in 2025. They released the songs I Want You Here All the Time and a re-recorded version of their previously unreleased song Blow Your Speakers Out. They are about to go on their 3rd leg of the In Real Life Worldwide Tour, the tour where they sing every single song from their TV show, consisting around 40 songs. For 2 of their US shows, they brought out Jordan Sparks to sing their song Count on You, and for nearly every other show, they had Caitlin Tarver come out and sing her part. They have also teased a possible 5th album coming sometime soon. Also, since the first part of this video was filmed, I had the chance to meet all 7 boys, as I mentioned in the intro. I met Big Time Rush at their Las Vegas show for this tour, and they're all very sweet and incredible performers. I had a very fun time seeing them. And I met the Jonas Brothers at their Los Angeles pop-up. They were surprise guests. I'm happy to report that they were all very kind. These bands mean so much to me, so both of these moments were very special. Additionally, I never really picked which band won the Battle of the Boy Band TV show, and that is because I just don't want to pick a favorite. But I will say that the Jonas Brothers managed to maintain a stronger band image apart from their series, and this is mostly because of the way that Disney and Nickelodeon chose to market their bands. With Big Time Rush, it was always very difficult to tell if they were a real band or if they were a fictional band made only for the TV show. But I'm very happy to see both of these bands thriving and growing up and moving past their past selves. And I cannot wait to see what both of these bands do next. I also want to say a really special thanks to anybody who watched any part of this video. I really appreciate you. This took a lot of time, and I've been wanting to make a video essay on my channel for such a long time. and I figured why not start by talking about one of my favorite things ever, boy bands. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Mia, and I'll see you guys next time.